Xiao Ran revealed a smile. The knife in Lin Guangzong's hand was naturally provided by him. Spatial exchange could achieve it without anyone noticing. The battle couldn't be allowed to be one-sided. Come, let's add some difficulty. And in the place where the men were sleeping, the chaotic battle was still ongoing. With the momentum completely one-sided, Wang Weiping's group of 5, even though facing 9 people and being completely outnumbered, still gained an advantage at the beginning. But the numerical disparity was there. After the 9 men came to their senses and began to counterattack, the 5 were clearly no match. They were all ordinary people. Fighting obviously depended on numbers. However, these 5 were not flustered because they still had Wang Weiping. This was a fierce man in a fight, and he had even killed people. Wang Weiping, however, was staring at Lin Guangzong. Adrenaline was now pumping fiercely. He didn't actually feel much pain. He felt more confusion and suspicion. Why would Lin Guangzong have a knife? Why didn't Xiongyin tell him? Could there be some conspiracy in this? Thinking this, he became suspicious and somewhat dared not to fight recklessly. He was afraid that if they both suffered heavy losses, a third party would reap the benefits. But while he dared not fight recklessly, Lin Guangzong, with courage born of malice, waved the fruit knife and charged over. Kick a man when he's down. Although Wang Weiping wasn't sick now, with a knife in hand, his courage naturally soared. For a moment, he didn't think about where the fruit knife had come from, or what was wrong with it. I'll kill you. Wang Weiping had no choice but to fight with Lin Guangzong again. Truth be told, Lin Guangzong was useless even with a knife in hand, because he had never fought before. He only charged forward on sheer bravado, and Wang Weiping, despite taking a stab, still managed to forcefully snatch the fruit knife away. Go die for lousy. Wang Weiping gripped the knife with both hands and ruthlessly stabbed it towards Lin Guangzong's chest. It's over. Lin Guangzong was filled with despair. However, when the fruit knife stabbed down, he didn't feel his chest being torn apart at all. It did hurt, but it was clearly the pain of being punched. Huh? Wang Weiping also looked down, and then he looked as if he had seen a ghost. What fruit knife was in his hand? It was a banana. How could a banana stab someone to death? Not only could it not kill, the skin broke, the flesh snapped, and it became a mushy mess. Wang Weiping, unconvinced, wiped up a bit with his finger. Indeed, the texture of a banana. He put it in his mouth, soft, sweet. This fucking was a banana. How many days had it been in the apocalypse? When had he last eaten a banana? At any other time, he would have been ecstatic, but now he was trembling with fear. I've seen a ghost. He abruptly sat on the ground, supporting himself with his hands and retreating several steps, his face deathly pale. Lin Guangzong, on the other hand, touched the banana peel on his chest, even picked it up to examine it for a moment, and then a bizarre scene occurred. The banana peel actually turned back into a fruit knife. Could it be? I've gained a special ability? But why can I only turn a banana into a fruit knife? Wouldn't it be better to conjure a gun? Ha ha! Lin Guangzong laughed loudly. Wang Weiping, oh Wang Weiping, how can you fight me? He was now a person with superpowers. Seeing him so high profile, Wang Weiping thought the fruit knife, turning into a banana, was truly his doing. Naturally, he was scared out of his wits, his morale plummeted by tons. When Lin Guangzong rushed over to fight desperately, he had no courage to face him head-on, only to keep fleeing. But the space inside the room was limited. In just a few moves, he was caught by Lin Guangzong, and the two wrestled together again. Lin Guangzong's combat power was indeed very weak, and the fruit knife was once again snatched away by Wang Weiping. I don't believe it. Wang Weiping roared and stabbed down with the knife again. Poof! A banana was instantly crushed, its tender flesh splattering everywhere. Wang Weiping stood dumbstruck, trembling even more. This was too bizarre, and the bizarreness turned into fear, making him terrified. Lin Guangzong, however, became even more convinced that he had superpowers. Holding the banana peel, he chased after Wang Weiping. One stab, and indeed the banana peel instantly changed into a fruit knife. Come die. Come die. Lin Guangzong entered a frenzied state. Son of a bitch, I'll let you play with my wife. I'll let you play with my wife. Because Wang Weiping was panicking, he couldn't even exert half his strength. Eventually, Lin Guangzong stabbed him in the soft ribs, and then he became fish on the chopping block, only to be slaughtered by Lin Guangzong. Stab after stab, gushes of fresh blood were brought out. Wang Weiping was still screaming at first, but soon he could no longer make a sound, and had completely stopped struggling. But Lin Guangzong was still stabbing, his expression ferocious and splattered with blood. He looked like a fierce ghost. Once Wang Weiping died, the 5 men on that side, already at a disadvantage, naturally lost all morale and were quickly subdued. Boss Lin, how should we deal with these 5? The other 9 asked. Lin Guangzong's killing intent had risen. He walked over a swipe. Poof! One person's throat was slit, blood gushing out. See, killing people isn't that hard, he said nonchalantly. It's not like only Wang Weiping knows how to kill. Everyone was trembling. Boss Lin, we were wrong. Spare us. The remaining 4 hurriedly begged for mercy. But Lin Guangzong ignored them completely. 1 stab per person, finishing off all 4. He thought for a moment, didn't stop, but went next door instead. Soon, women's screams were heard. After a while, Lin Guangzong was seen walking back, covered in blood. Not his, but Xiong Yan's. This woman dared to betray him. Why not kill her? Sleep, Lin Guangzong said coldly, casually wiped the blood off his face and hands with his clothes, then fell down asleep. He used his superpower, the fruit knife, turned back into a banana, so he slept very soundly. But the others couldn't sleep. This was destined to be a sleepless night. Xiao Ran watched with great interest. Lin Guangzong and Wang Weiping were bound to fall out and fight. This was a long-accumulated conflict. It was just that without Xiao Ran's appearance, this conflict might have been delayed a few more days and wouldn't have erupted immediately. He also slowly fell asleep. With his crisis premonition, ordinary people couldn't possibly harm him. Of course, he still blocked the door and windows with heavy objects. A night passed. Xiao Ran slept until he woke naturally. Wang Lulu, however, was a heavy sleeper and only agreed to dress and get up after Xiao Ran urged her several times. Today was the 10th day of Su Ching-May's evolution. Xiao Ran had to hurry back. For the next 10 days, every day one woman would reach the critical point of evolution. He had to go back and keep an eye on them. He removed the heavy objects blocking the door. By this time, Lin Guangzong and the others had also long since gotten up. So many people died in one night. Who could truly sleep soundly? So, when Xiao Ran and Wang Lulu walked out, they saw Lin Guangzong and the others already waiting for them. Xiao Ran, we need your hovercraft. You wouldn't refuse to lend it to us, right? Lin Guangzong asked faintly. In just one night, he had suddenly gained a powerful aura. This comprised both the ferocity after killing and the bonus of strong self-confidence. Xiao Ran just smiled. Lin Guangzong thought he had chickened out, was scared. After all, the information Xiong Yin fed back last night indicated Xiao Ran was cowardly to an extreme. So Xiao Ran's reaction was not beyond his expectation. Then he stared at Wang Lulu, revealing a wicked smile. I also want your woman. You wouldn't have any objections, right? Riding the prestige of killing Wang Weiping, coupled with the feeling of possessing superpowers, Lin Guangzong felt on top of the world. If I tell you to hand over the boat, you hand over the boat. If I tell you to hand over the woman, you obediently offer the woman. Otherwise, it's death. Xiao Ran still smiled. Having watched a good show all night yesterday, he was actually a bit reluctant to kill these people. He was slightly stunned, because his spatial perception detected a sled entering the range, pulled by 6 dogs. However, only one person was sitting on the sled, but there were several packages. Ability user. This was Xiao Ran's first reaction, because wouldn't an ordinary person riding a sled be courting death? Even if dressed very warmly, if the time exceeded 10 or 20 minutes, they would only freeze to death. This was a man in his 30s. Strengthening his spatial perception scan, Xiao Ran could see very clearly that this person's cellular strength and density were far above an ordinary person's. However, it's only the equivalent of 1 portion. Xiao Ran shook his head. For a big shot who had absorbed nearly 2,000 portions of abilities, a mere 1 portion was truly somewhat beneath notice. So, he was more curious. What was this person here for? However, his silence, in Lin Guangzong's eyes, naturally meant he had chickened out. This didn't surprise him either. It was just that before he could walk over and take Wang Lulu away, he heard the sound of dogs barking. Not only him, others heard it too, and all showed strange expressions. How could there be dog barking sounds? It's so cold. Even with a coat of fur, dogs should be freezing and tucking in their paws, right? Once curious, they temporarily couldn't be bothered with Xiao Ran and all ran to the window to look. Anyway, the hovercraft was outside. In a vast snowy expanse, 6 dogs were seen pulling a sled, rapidly approaching. This gave them all a small shock. Although they hadn't tried it, they knew how cold it was outside. Yet someone could still sit on a sled in the wind. Hiss! How do they not freeze to death? However, they also saw that the dogs pulling the sled were either Alaskan Malamutes, Huskies, or Samoyeds. The 3 sillies of the snow. They were naturally born for pulling sleds. Even in the Arctic, their active figures could be seen, so it wasn't really strange. The sled got closer and closer, stopping outside the hotel. Then the person on the sled got down and climbed in through the window. At this time, everyone could finally see each other face to face. The person from the sled took off their goggles and such, revealing a very ordinary face. A man in his 30s, with a crew cut, medium build, not thin but not stout either. No matter how you looked at him, he was a very ordinary person. The man swept his gaze over the crowd and said with a smile, "Hello everyone, my name is Chen from New World." What? Lin Guangzong and his group all stared at him blankly. What New World? What kind of place was that? Chen feigned sudden realization. Are there no ability users here? Huh? The crowd was dumbfounded again. Chen smiled, waved his hand, and cold air condensed, quickly forming a sword made of ice in his hand, which he then casually tossed away. This scene made everyone's eyeballs almost pop out. Too magical, right? Only Lin Guangzong was surprised, and even more so, felt a sense of loss, saying, "You actually have superpowers too." It turned out that the special ability of turning bananas into fruit knives was not unique to him, although the type of superpower was different. "You have abilities too?" Chen was somewhat surprised. Lin Guangzong said very proudly, "I suddenly gained it just last night." "What type is it?" Chen was very curious. In order to intimidate the other party and let Chen know he wasn't to be trifled with, Lin Guangzong decisively took out the banana and shouted, "Change." A bizarre scene appeared. The banana turned into a fruit knife. This greatly surprised Chen. An ability, definitely an ability. It's just, how is this ability so strange? It feels so useless. However, having an ability makes one an ability user, a talent that the bosses need to recruit. Thus, he immediately showed a smile. "How should I address this elder brother?" "Lin Guangzong." Lin Guangzong said very proudly. "So it's Brother Lin." Chen quickly greeted him. "I didn't explain in detail just now. The New World I mentioned is a survivor settlement. There, not only do we have dedicated personnel going out daily to search for supplies, but we also grow plants underground and raise pigs, sheep, chickens, geese, etc. It won't be long before we can welcome a bountiful harvest. Our boss is named Qin Sui, known as Sister Qin. In the entire settlement, ability users like me number in the thousands. Sister Qin treats people very well. Like me, I used to be an ordinary person. It was Sister Qin who helped me become an ability user. In the New World, as long as you work diligently, you can survive and live quite comfortably too. Under Sister Qin's restraints, even ability users cannot lord it over ordinary people. At most, their abilities are greater and their treatment is better. How about it? Want to go to New World? We don't limit the number of people there. Sister Qin is kind-hearted and just wants to save more people. She's practically a living bodhisattva. Listening to his description, Lin Guangzong and these people were both tempted and somewhat disbelieving. In these times, how could there still be kind-hearted people? Shouldn't they have all died out long ago? So, Chen wanted to trick them over there? Chen seemed to see their worry and couldn't help but laugh. Think about it. What do you have on you that's worth my scheming for? And he waved his hand, and 3 ice arrows shot out. Whoosh, 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 they pierced the leather of a nearby sofa, embedding themselves deeply. That was leather, yet it was forcefully pierced through. Isn't that almost like a bullet? If I really wanted to do something to you, could you stop me? Now, everyone had no doubts. He clearly had the ability to kill them all right now. So, why bother making up a lie to deceive them? Then, how do we get to New World? Tangwen asked. Walk there? We probably wouldn't even make it 1 kilometer before dying on the road. They came out for team building, so it's impossible they brought winter clothes. Now they are all wrapped in bedsheets and quilts to ward off the cold. Walking out like this isn't courting death? Chen smiled. Isn't there a hovercraft outside? If you ride on that, would you still be afraid of freezing to death? All right. Lin Guangzong, however, was a bit hesitant. He was boss Lin in the company, and here he could also wrestle with Wang Weiping. But if he went to some New World, wouldn't his status plummet? Chen immediately added, Sister Qin is desperately seeking talent. Although ability users can't lord it over others there, the treatment is extremely good. After all, this world will definitely belong to ability users in the future. He glanced at the others again and said with a smile, You don't need to worry either. Sister Qin's most amazing ability is that she can help us become ability users. Become an ability user. At this, everyone was shocked and expectant. Lin Guangzong can turn a banana into a fruit knife. This ability, although very cool, seems not very useful, but Chen can hand-rub ice lances and shoot ice arrows. This effect is truly impressive. Who wouldn't be envious? This ability can actually be obtained with help from someone. Everyone was naturally inexplicably excited. Actually, Xiao Ran had already heard He Chunhua mention it briefly, but at that time, He Chunhua had just glossed over it, unlike now when it was brought up specifically. Sister Qin also has such an ability? Damn, could she also be a spatial type ability user? Xiao Ran couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Then he thought of the blood poison ability user who had previously attacked Hope Camp. He was Sister Qin's subordinate, but the strange thing was that after his death, there was no ability to absorb. Wait. Sister Qin can help people evolve. Ability users have no ability to absorb. Is there a connection between the two? Xiao Ran frowned slightly. If the side effect, or sequela, of Sister Qin helping people evolve is that such ability users cannot provide abilities for others to absorb, then can someone like that blood poison ability user absorb other people's abilities to improve? This person in front of him. Xiao Ran could confirm through spatial perception that this person's physical fitness should be in its initial state, meaning they haven't absorbed any abilities. Otherwise, if their body cells have been strengthened even twice, they would naturally far exceed their current state. So, the reason this person maintained their original state, was it because they had no opportunity to absorb abilities, or because they couldn't absorb them? Both are possible. Because if Sister Qin can truly help others evolve abilities, then whether it's the previous blood poison man or the current He Chunhua, saying Sister Qin has thousands of ability users under her wouldn't be boasting, but truly possible. So, with such a powerful faction, who would dare to provoke them? Then if it's just dealing with ordinary people, even initial state ability users are more than enough, and originally they couldn't absorb abilities anyway. In this way, it cannot be determined whether He Chunhua hasn't absorbed abilities or is unable to absorb abilities. Interesting. But Xiao Ran also became vigilant. If Sister Qin can mass-produce ability users, this in itself is unsettling and worrying. Then shouldn't I also go full throttle and cultivate a large number of ability users? There are 12 in the mansion. Qingyong building has another 14. That's 26 in total. Oh, forgot Bowsy, then all told, it's 27. Is this thinking my harem isn't big enough and needs a lot of expansion? Build a female ability user legion? Sound wonderful, but I'm afraid my little brother can't handle it and will protest. Forget it. At most, I'll just evolve all these 26 people. Just as Xiao Ran was lost in thought, He Chunhua was already calling everyone to leave. What are you two still standing there dazed for? This person said to Xiao Ran and Wang Lulu. Xiao Ran came back to his senses, and in that instant, he had already made a decision. He shook his head. We still have other places to go, so we won't go for now. He Chunhua was clearly stunned, looking deeply at Xiao Ran. Are we going to fall out? Better not. I still need you to lead the way for me. Xiao Ran just smiled. However, although He Chunhua looked at Xiao Ran for a while, he still smiled and said, All right, no problem. We never force others. If you change your minds, you are welcome to join New World at any time. After saying that, he waved to the crowd, signaling them to quickly board the hovercraft. The crowd didn't even look at Xiao Ran, nor did they ask the owner's, opinion. They all rushed out one after another. Actually, Lin Guangzong still wanted to take Wang Lulu with them, but seeing He Chunhua agree to let Xiao Ran and the others stay, he forcibly suppressed this thought. After all, a person who can hand rub ice lances is still quite terrifying. He could turn a banana into a fruit knife. In comparison, the gap was vast. Xiao Ran watched everyone go out. Spatial exchange activated. The Huawei Mate 60 in his hand immediately disappeared, replaced by a rag. Xiao Chuchio had used her ability and professional knowledge to plant spyware in his phone, which could use other phones to check its location, so he seemingly handed over the hovercraft, but it was equivalent to sending out a spy. This ship's final destination must be Sister Qin's lair. So, he himself didn't need to go at all, and would naturally find out Sister Qin's lair. Xiao Ran, our ship. Wang Lu didn't know Xiao Ran's plan, seeing everyone had already boarded the hovercraft, but Xiao Ran remained motionless. She naturally became anxious. Xiao Ran smiled faintly. It's okay, we'll just lend them this ship for a few days. Just a few days, you'll have to return it to me. But why didn't he go directly to Sister Qin's place? Firstly, going undercover is a dangerous matter after all, and he was also bringing Wang Lulu. Secondly, Ching-May was going to finish evolving today, and if he didn't participate, her chance of death was as high as 90%. So, Xiao Ran decided to return to Qingfeng Garden first. Moreover, for the next 11 days, a woman would complete her evolution every day. He couldn't leave for such a long time. At most, he could leave for half a day. With the current inconvenience of transportation, what could he do in half a day? Go home. After He Chunhua and his group left, Xiao Ran took out a second hovercraft and immediately set off back to Qingfeng Garden. More than 2 hours later, the two returned to Qingfeng Garden. As soon as he returned, all the women immediately felt at ease. Xiao Ran checked Su Ching-May's condition. Fortunately, although the energy in her body was gradually becoming violent, it hadn't reached the point of condensing a seed yet. Su Xinran on the side was terrified. If Xiao Ran hadn't returned in time, her sister had a 90% chance of dying. Xiao Ran didn't mention anything about Lin Guangzong and the others or Sister Qin and her group. He just waited because apart from Wang Lulu and Xia Chuqiu, everyone else was already in a feverish state, so the whole mansion seemed particularly quiet, completely devoid of its past liveliness. Xiao Ran had Xia Chuqiu check the location of his phone. He had bought several Mate 60s back then, all with satellite phone functionality enabled. Coupled with Xia Chuqiu's ability, connecting to satellites became effortless, and she continuously plotted points on the map using latitude and longitude. The whereabouts of He Chunhua and the others were clear at a glance. Finally, they stopped at one place and didn't move again. This should be Sister Qin's lair. Looking at the map, this place was an empty lot. A bit interesting. Xiao Ran nodded, took a screenshot of the phone, and put it away. Did you miss me? He asked Xia Chuqiu with a smile. No. Xia Chuqiu was a little proud and haughty. Oh, but her stubbornness immediately succumbed to Xiao Ran's hands, quickly melting into a pool of spring water, ready to be plucked. After passively absorbing abilities, Xia Chuqiu's abilities also made significant progress. Even from 1 to 2, this is a 100% increase. Not to mention the ability users Xiao Ran had thrown out before mounted to at least 4 portions, so Xia Chuqiu suddenly reached a strength of 5 portions, and her abilities naturally skyrocketed. Her range of controlling electrical appliances instantly increased to a vast 6 kilometers. Very powerful, a radius of 6 kilometers. If she absorbed several hundred abilities, could this distance be increased to 100 kilometers or even 1,000 kilometers? Then could one lie at home while a mushroom bomb rises from 1,000 li away, attacking 10,000 li away? This ability has astonishing growth potential. The premise is that there are still so many electrical appliances and electronic devices in the world for her to control. In comparison, Suhi can only read messages. Even if he can communicate with satellites, this ability is incredibly weak. Then how many more abilities would need to be absorbed to reach the level of controlling geostationary satellites? A very, very long time. Forget it. Let's not consider this problem for now. Time came to noon, and Xiao Ran ate with Xia Chuqiu and Wang Lulu. Only the 3 of them still had an appetite. All the other women had no appetite. Even Bowsy was like this. In an evolutionary state, one wouldn't die for not eating or drinking. The afternoon was still uneventful. Xiao Ran was just waiting. Until it was close to evening, Su Ching-May finally entered the final stage, condensing the energy seed. He immediately intervened. Compared to when he helped Xia Chuqiu, how many times stronger was the current Xiao Ran? Therefore, his control over banishment was much more adept, and the duration also greatly increased. Unlike when helping Xia Chuqiu, where he struggled a bit at the end, this time it was easy all the way. He controlled the energy intensity within Su Ching-May's body, slowly releasing power, allowing the energy seed to condense rapidly. This process seemed very easy. After an hour, the energy seed in Su Ching-May's mind was already shining brightly. Boom! Suddenly, the seed shattered, scattering throughout her entire body. Instantly, every cell greedily absorbed this energy, undergoing a fundamental improvement. This change is very interesting. If I mastered this change, could I directly create ability users artificially? Even if they don't have special abilities, at least they would be physical type. He said this in his mind, while expectantly watching Su Ching-May. From experience, Su Ching-May should have successfully evolved. He just didn't know what ability she possessed. Su Ching-May suddenly opened her eyes, her gaze instantly shifting from blank to sharp. But when she saw Xiao Ran, her sharp eyes gained a trace of softness and a warm hue that perhaps even she herself wasn't aware of. What ability did you awaken? Xiao Ran asked expectantly. It seems to be an instinct. No ability user wouldn't know how to use their ability after awakening. At least they can use it, but mastering it requires repeated attempts to figure out. Su Ching-May closed her eyes to feel it. After a while, she reopened her eyes and shook her head. I didn't awaken any ability. Xiao Ran was stunned. That's not right. The evolution was clearly successful. However, Ching-May smiled, grabbed Xiao Ran with one hand, and easily lifted him up. My strength is very great now. Well, physical type. Xiao Ran was displeased. How can you, a woman, lift me? Don't I have face to lose? So he used to lift Ching-May up. This of yours also counts as an ability. It's just not as flashy as other abilities. But if you ask me, apart from a very few abilities like spatial abilities, physical type is actually the most comprehensive. Look, firstly, great strength, fast speed. Just give me a chance at close combat. Even if you've absorbed 100 portions of abilities, I can easily kill you. Secondly, the current weather is extremely cold, but physical types can easily walk outside, even if just wearing a single layer of clothing. This physique is just that awesome. High attack, high defense, fast speed. What more could you ask for? Of course, Xiao Ran definitely felt that spatial ability was stronger, and that was indeed the case. To put it another way, at worst, I can absorb more abilities like 200 or 300 portions. Wouldn't that be comparable to a physical type? Conversely, no matter how many abilities a physical type absorbs, they can't possess a different dimension, right? Xiao Ran, thank you. Ching-May said seriously. Xiao Ran chuckled mischievously. Then how do you plan to repay me? Ching-May rolled her eyes at him. This guy could always ruin a very warm atmosphere. True, this guy had been hurt by marriage. Ching-May had also heard it from Han Yun and the others that Xiao Ran had a marriage before. As a result, his wife had already treated him as a plate receiver before marriage, and he happily became a father. What man, after such a shock, would still have faith in love and marriage? She hugged Xiao Ran, burying his head in her warm embrace, feeling a bit sorry for him. Hey, I'm not a child. Forget it, being a child isn't bad. There's milk to drink. Xiao Ran protested at first, then gladly accepted it. This bastard. Ching-May's toes instantly tensed. Her Achilles heel was firmly grasped by this man. Moreover, the side effects of awakening also began to take effect. Time rewinds a little. Xiao Mountain, Hot Spring Resort Hotel. Two figures appeared in the ruins of the hotel, both men. One was actually wearing only a vest, his two thick arms exposed to the severe cold, but he seemed completely unaware. A cigar dangled from his mouth, which he puffed on, blue smoke puffing from his nostrils. The other person was completely different. He wore thick winter clothes, swollen like a fat man. I really envy you physical types, not only full of energy, but also cold-resistant, the man in winter clothes lamented. The vest man glanced at him and sneered. Then how about I send you to reincarnate, so you can reawaken ability? The man in winter clothes rolled his eyes. Why do you have no sense of humor, and your mind is full of fighting and killing? The vest man glanced at him again. My mind is also full of women. Damn it, what nerve of mine snapped to actually agree to come out with you to do this? Isn't playing with women at the base more enjoyable? The man in winter clothes shrugged. Maybe, perhaps. It's because Sister Chen gave the order? The vest man looked displeased. Hurry up and start. Go back after finishing the mission. I fucking can't go a day without touching a woman. Hee, I know you're anxious, but you absolutely mustn't rush. The man in winter clothes deliberately teased him. Shall see. I think you don't want to live anymore. The vest man brandished his fist. Start quickly. All right, I know. The man in winter clothes reached out and pressed his hand on the ruins, closed his eyes, and countless images instantly flashed through his mind. I see it, shouted the guy in the winter coat. Holy crap, that fight's insane. What the hell is that monster? Suddenly, Winter Coat guy jerked his hand away and opened his eyes wide in shock. What did you see? The tank top guy asked, his voice low and serious. All jokes vanished from both their faces. Winter Coat guy took a moment to calm himself before speaking. Wei Lily's dead. Chao Xining's dead. Gao Yang too. All of them got taken out by the same guy. Damn, that dude's insanely strong. And his ability? It's creepy as hell. He can crush people alive and make them disappear in the weirdest ways. Tank top guy looked stunned. You sure you're not just losing it? See for yourself. Winter Coat guy reached out and pressed his fingers against Tank top guy's temples. Immediately, Tank top guy's mind was flooded with images, silent but crystal clear. Moments later, shock registered on his face too. None of those people were weak, and yet, all of them were wiped out by one man. What kind of monster was this? He could fire steel bars and rocks like bullets, crush people with brute force, even make them vanish in a thin air. This is messed up. We need to report back. Now, that guy's way too dangerous. And his powers are weird as hell. We gotta let Sister Chen know ASAP. Of course, Xiao Ran had no idea what was going on way out in Xiaoyang Mountain. He wasn't omniscient, though maybe one day, when his spatial perception could cover the whole world, he just might be. A new day began. Xiao Ran's plans were simple. Wander around a bit during the day, be home by 3 p.m. at the latest, then help Zhao Yansu condense her energy seed. The next few days would follow that same routine. He decided not to evolve the 14 women from the Qinghong building just yet. What was the point of evolving them if he couldn't keep feeding them abilities to grow stronger? With more people, resources would stretch too thin. Better to wait until natural radiation helped them evolve on their own. He could bring them in then. He didn't lack for helpers. In fact, with his growing arsenal of powers, Xiao Ran alone was already a walking natural disaster. Helping the women evolve was just to give them some means of self-defense. After breakfast, Xiao Ran headed out, this time with Xia Chuki. She'd been cooped up at home since the catastrophe began and hadn't been out once. Naturally, Xiao Ran couldn't play favorites. She needed some fresh air too. Sure enough, Xia Chuki was thrilled the entire way. The vast snowy landscape was breathtaking. You had to forgive Southerners. They never saw snow like this. Even when it snowed in the past, it would melt quickly, especially on the roads where cars and exhaust heat would clear it away fast. A world blanketed in endless white was a rare sight. Before long, they arrived at the underground complex near Suching Bay, just beside Lake Tai. It was only about 20 kilometers from Qing Phone Garden, a 30-minute ride tops. But about a kilometer from the destination, Xiao Ran frowned. He hadn't come here to pick a fight with Chang Qian's faction, just to check things out. After all, they were one of 5 major forces in Suching and practically neighbors. But now, the place was deserted. He moved closer, extending his spatial perception. Not a soul in sight. Instead, he found several working cameras, infrared ones, able to capture images in the dark. And explosives. A whole lot of them. What the hell? A trap? Set to detonate once a specific person entered? This was an underground facility. An explosion here would collapse the whole place and take out most powered individuals. Wait, was this trap? For him. But he didn't have any beef with Cheng Qian. Sure, he had killed one of Cheng Qian's men, but Cheng Qian didn't even know about that. As far as Cheng Qian knew, they had no quarrel. He probably hadn't even heard of Xiao Ran. So maybe this trap was set for someone else. Among the 5 Suching powers, 3 were already gone. The only one left that could threaten Cheng Qian was Luo Yafay, but he was all the way in Xianqing. Wouldn't make sense for them to cross paths in this extreme weather. Unless it was aimed at Wujiang. That could be. The area was right next to Wujiang District, and a frozen Lake Tai had turned previous boundaries into easy walkways. Xiao Ran turned to Xia Chuki. There's several cameras up ahead. Can you trace where their feed is being sent? No problem, Xia Chuki replied with a smile. She could control electronics, including surveillance equipment. Those cameras had to be transmitting footage, and likely not too far away. By following the electronic signal flow, she could trace it back to the source. Xiao Ran could have done it himself with spatial perception, but it would have taken longer. Why not use the easier option? A moment later, Xia Chuki said, "Found it. Let's go." Xiao Ran piloted the hovercraft while Xia Chuki directed him. After traveling just a kilometer, Xiao Ran pinpointed 3 people holed up inside a building. There was a battery and a computer displaying 11 camera feeds, dim and fuzzy, likely due to damage. These guys weren't even powered. Xiao Ran shook his head, parked nearby, and walked the rest of the way with Xia Chuki. Their enhanced bodies made the hike easy. They reached the 21st floor, broke in through a window, and entered the room. The door was locked, but Xiao Ran popped it open with a gentle push. Click! The sound made the 3 men inside snap their heads around. Their eyes landed on Xia Chuki first. She was so stunning it made their brain short-circuit. But reality hit quick. What kind of goddess just shows up out of nowhere? Something was off. Then they looked at Xiao Ran. Xiao Ran, they all blurted out. Shit. The moment they said his name, Xiao Ran realized it. The trap, the explosives, were meant for him. Seriously? Cheng Qian, man, what the hell did I ever do to you? We've never even met, and you're trying to blow me up? You even abandoned your own base to do it. Xiao Ran felt the urge to rant, but just smiled. So, you know me? And no, not at all. The 3 men stammered, shaking their heads furiously. Xia Chuki snorted. Then how do you know my man's name, huh? She was the traditional type. Since giving her heart and body to Xiao Ran, she already considered him her husband. The 3 men's eyes darted around, scrambling to come up with excuses. But they were 3 different people. How were they going to make up the exact same story? Xiao Ran grabbed one of them, dragged him to the window, opened it, and casually tossed him out. Arg! The scream faded into the distance, ending with a sickening thud. No more sound. The snow below was nearly 7 meters deep, but packed solid by now. Falling from the 21st floor? No chance of surviving that. He shut the window, cutting off the wind. But the fear in the two remaining men's hearts only grew. They were trembling, paralyzed by terror. Xiao Chuki remained calm and emotionless. Ever since her grandfather died, she had no sympathy left to give. This world was eat or be eaten. Why pity those who planned to kill the man she loved? Xiao Ran smiled again. I ask. You answer. Displease me, and you go out the window. Got it. Why yes. Got it. They nodded like bobbleheads. Whose men are you? He asked, though he already knew. Still, it was worth double-checking. Cheng Qian. Boss Cheng. They both answered in unison. No lie detected. Where's your boss now? With Qin Jie. Yeah, he went to Wujiang. Then, they quickly added, Qin Jie's in Wujiang. Okay, that checked out too. Still, Cheng Qian working with Qin Jie? That was unexpected. Wasn't he a major player himself? Why go be someone else's lackey? He abandoned his own turf to go to hers. Clearly, he wasn't going there to take charge. Weird. Why'd Cheng Qian team up with Qin Jie? Xiao Ran asked. The two started talking. Different wording, but the same gist. Boss Gao had some men defect to us, saying he probably wasn't coming back. Might have met some accident. And he was after you. He'd even talked about teaming up with our boss to take you down. So when his men came looking for a new leader, they turned to Cheng Qian. Then our boss heard both Boss Gao and Boss Chao never came back and got spooked. Qin Jie had reached out just days before about an alliance, so our boss figured why not. Next thing we know, he took the whole crew to go see her. Jesus. Were Cheng Qian and Gao Liang long-lost twins, or something? They were both paranoid as hell. Gao Liang didn't even face Xiao Ran yet, just heard how strong he was, and that was enough to scare Cheng Qian into fleeing. Xiao Ran was speechless. He pointed to the monitor. And this? Surveillance. They answered obediently. We're supposed to report if you show up. Oh please. Like I wouldn't know the underground's rigged with explosives? Xiao Ran shook his head. Lie. The two exchanged glances, then doubled down. Really, it's just a watch for your arrival. They were clearly trying to avoid admitting that spotting Xiao Ran was the cue to blow the place sky high. Because if they said that out loud, they were dead. Xiao Ran didn't bother arguing. A flicker of thought, and both of them dropped. Spatial energy had sliced into their brains. He stroked his chin. Cheng Qian, really? That cowardly? Gao Liang tried to recruit him to go after Xiao Ran, then died in the hot spring hotel. Cheng Qian figured he might be next, and dipped the moment Qin Jie extended an olive branch. If you hadn't planted those explosives, Xiao Ran muttered, maybe I wouldn't have even cared. But since you tried to kill me, well, now it's personal. You think hiding with Qin Sui makes you safe. He chuckled. I'll see you soon, Cheng Qian. Afterward, Xiao Ran took Xiao Chuki on a shopping spree. Everything was free, of course. She was thrilled, screaming like a happy kid, and still reluctant to go home even as they returned before 3 p.m. Back at Qingfeng Garden, Zhao Yansu hadn't yet begun her final evolution stage. It wasn't until after dinner, around 8 p.m., that she finally started. Xiao Ran focused, pouring all his energy into helping her. He was getting better and better at it. An hour later, the energy seed in her mind solidified, then shattered, releasing power throughout her entire body. A moment passed. Zhao Yansu opened her eyes, her seductive gaze gleaming. Big brother, I did it, she giggled. What's your ability? Xiao Ran asked. Guessing powers had become a daily ritual. Zhao Yansu smiled sweetly, raising her right hand. Thin streams of cold air curled around her fingers. Ice. Xiao Ran nodded. Not super powerful, but definitely practical. Most importantly, it made her immune to the cold. She could wear a bikini and run around outside like a crazed husky. If she ever absorbed enough energy, maybe she'd become like that admiral who could freeze entire oceans. But unfortunately, Xiao Ran wasn't about to pour resources into anyone else. His strength was the key. Spatial powers had the most growth potential. Nothing else came close. Big bro Zhou Yunsa leaned in, eyes teasing. Now I can show you what it really means to experience fire and ice together. Oh damn, she really just found a way to use her powers for that. Genius. Xiao Ran's heart skipped a beat. Want to give it a try? Wonderful times are always short, and Xiao Ran was even more satisfied with little green tea. A night passed, and the apocalypse entered its 74th day. Today was the day Zhong Lei was to finish her evolution. Xiao Ran was still the same. He planned to go out for a spin during the day and rush back before 3 p.m. He brought Su Ching-May along. After Su Ching-May successfully evolved, she immediately showed her strong person colors, surprisingly only wearing a very thin autumn shirt to go out. The severe cold actually had very little effect on her. She was indeed not as cold-resistant as ice attribute ability users, but she surpassed ordinary people by an unknown margin, so she could almost ignore such extreme temperatures. Actually, Xiao Ran could too. He had absorbed nearly 2,000 portions of abilities. His physique was stronger than his initial state, perhaps even stronger than a physical type who had absorbed 10 or 20 portions of abilities, but he still wore thick winter clothes and refused to take them off. It's so cold. You're wearing so little. Aren't you clearly telling others you're an ability user? And it's very easy to guess. Either physical type, or ice attribute, or fire attribute. Generally these three types. Someone like him, who had absorbed too many abilities and whose physique was comparable to a not weak physical type, was truly rare. When you can get the drop on others, why take risks? Xiao Ran wanted Ching-May to wear more, but on second thought, he dismissed the idea. First, if Ching-May was conspicuous, wouldn't he be effectively invisible? He could still get the drop on people and also divert their attention. Second, if Ching-May wore less, wouldn't her figure be revealed? It's pleasing to the eye. Let it be. Xiao Ran started the hovercraft and began searching again. Life is truly tenacious. Although not every residential complex had survivors, at least 50% of complexes still had living people. Some only had 1 or 2 households left, while others had about 10 households, very united, going out together to find supplies, and also living together, somewhat like primitive people sharing a cave. Even some hotels unexpectedly also had living people. TSK. Xiao Ran went to Qinghong Building, restocked supplies there, thought for a moment, and then went to Jiufu residential area. He had a villa there that he had spent over 80 million on. Never mind that the Chong family mansion's construction cost should be far above this villa's, but the mansion was snatched and didn't cost him a penny. However, real gold and silver were spent on this villa, and he had also spent the initial period of the apocalypse here, leaving behind many beautiful and absurd memories. While he was sighing with emotion, Ching-May, for some unknown reason, blushed. Her first time with Xiao Ran had happened in this villa. Xiao Ran didn't understand at first, but after a glance at her expression, he came to his senses and said with a smile, "Let's go in." Ching-May was stunned. Go in for what? The villa had no electricity now. It might be an ice cave inside. Besides reminiscing, was there any other meaning? Relive an old dream. Half an hour later, the two came out again. The difference was, although Ching-May still maintained a cold and arrogant expression, there was an added trace of charm in the corner of her eyes. Xiao Ran sked. Green tea could now experience a double delight of ice and fire. But what was Ching-May's marvel? Were the characteristics of a physical type? Guess for yourself. Wonderful. Could it be that the true purpose of ability users is in? My thinking is narrow. After wandering around a bit more, Xiao Ran and Ching-May headed home. Should I go to Xiangqing district tomorrow to check on Luo Yafay, boss Luo? Shang Qian ran away. What about this one? Has Galiang contacted him? If not, then this boss Luo has no reason to run away. Not necessarily. After all, not everyone is as cowardly as Shang Qian, who scared himself into running away with his tail between his legs before the enemy even showed a shadow. Back home, first help Zhong Lei evolve. Xiao Ran calculated the time precisely, returning to Qingfeng Garden before 3 p.m. He would definitely leave ample time, so Zhong Lei naturally hadn't started her final evolution yet. Like Ching-May and Zhao Yansu, she started around 8 o'clock. Xiao Ran immediately began to operate with a serious expression. However, having done it so many times, he was actually very skilled, and it was quite easy. An hour later, the energy seed condensed, then suddenly shattered and was absorbed by all the cells in Zhong Lei's body. Congratulations. Xiao Ran withdrew his hand and smiled. Zhong Lei opened her eyes, her face full of disbelief. I've become an ability user just like that? 2 months ago, she would absolutely never have dreamed that she would have such a day. Thank you, she said to Xiao Ran, truly sincere and full of gratitude. This man didn't treat her as a plaything. Who would bestow power upon a plaything? So, she was grateful and moved. Xiao Ran, however, was very curious. What ability did you awaken? Just like drawing a lottery. Zhong Lei closed her eyes to sense it, then raised her hand, and with a hong sound, her entire palm actually burst into flames, yet strangely, it didn't harm her skin. Fire-type ability user. You and Zhao Yansu can form a CP. Xiao Ran pinched her cheek and smiled. Very good. From now on, starting fires and cooking will depend on you. We can save a lot of energy. Zhong Lei knew Xiao Ran was teasing and laughed along. Whose family would bear to use an ability user like this? Xiao Ran smacked his lips. He was serious. Why did it feel like Zhong Lei thought he was joking? Forget it. At this time, the side effects of Zhong Lei's awakening also came. Her bright, watery eyes quickly became charming and dripping with allure. Her gaze toward Xiao Ran filled with desire. You, what do you want to do? I'm not a casual person. Don't come over. Zhong Lei ignored Xiao Ran's shouts and decisively pounced on him. The tiger doesn't show its might. You take me for a sick cat? Xiao Ran chuckled. I'm not a casual person, but when I get casual, even I scare myself. A boring day passed just like that. The next day, Xiao Ran had nothing to do, lazily not wanting to go anywhere. Perhaps his great-uncle had arrived. Men also have 1 or 2 days a month when they are not interested in anything, just wanted to sit in a daze and empty their minds. Today was Zhang Jingya's final evolution day. Unexpectedly, she started at 5 p.m. Xiao Ran felt it was a bit strange, but still focused his full attention and immediately intervened. 3 hours later, he helplessly announced he was giving up. It wasn't that Zhang Jingya died, but that she consistently couldn't form an energy seed. Strange. Why is this? Zhang Jingya also woke up. Discovering she hadn't awakened any abilities, her spirits fell, and she looked dejected. In the family, she was already ranked 4th class. Now that she hadn't awakened an ability, wouldn't she be ranked 5th or 6th class? Even if she was just the only 4th class, that would be very shameful. Xiao Ran comforted her a bit, then fell into deep thought. Why didn't Zhang Jingya succeed in evolving? Look, after he intervened, didn't Ching-May, Zhao Yansu, and Zhong Lei all succeed in one go? How come she failed? Where is the point of failure? This is what Xiao Ran was pondering. Did I overlook something? He recalled carefully, but shook his head. He hadn't missed any detail. He would absolutely not get distracted because Zhang Jingya wasn't his favorite woman. On this point, he treated everyone equally. If he really was biased, then he should have let Zhang Jingya and Zhong Lei evolve first. This way, the later it got, the richer his experience would be. Wouldn't it be better to then help Ching-May and the others evolve? So, the problem isn't with me, but with Zhang Jingya herself, right? I forgot a very important thing. Previously at Hope Camp, even when he intervened, most people who survived safely were many, while those who became ability users were pitifully few. He couldn't just because Xia Chuqiu, Ching-May, and others successively evolved successfully, think that anyone he helped could become an ability user. Indeed, he figured out how to use banishment to control energy, allowing energy seeds to condense very easily. This did greatly increase the success rate, but it only increased the success rate and couldn't guarantee 100% success. So, Zhang Jingya became one of the very few exceptions. In fact, death from failed evolution accounted for 90%. The remaining 10% maintained an ordinary human state, and only about a 1 in 1,000 chance of successful evolution. To what extent did Xiao Ran's intervention raise the success rate of evolution? It was truly heaven-defying. You can't demand him to make everyone evolve successfully 100% of the time. It's okay. Let's see if she can continue to evolve, Xiao Ran comforted again. At Zhang Jingya's request, she applied some more liquid from the melted poisonous hailstones. But this time, it was different from before. She didn't cry out in pain. Immune? Regardless of whether you become an ability user, as long as you survive this wave of evolution, do you become immune to this kind of toxin? Then, wouldn't ability users not have to fear this toxin? Hiss. Xiao Ran couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. Humans can evolve, what about plants? If plants can too, then given the number of plants in the world, wouldn't there always be a few that can survive and become ability trees, ability grass, ability moss? Then, can life continue again? Holy crap, thinking about it this way, it seems there are endless possibilities. Try increasing the dosage a bit more, Xiao Ran said. Zhang Jingya's expression was firm. Increased the toxic dosage. Useless. Zhang Jingya still felt nothing. So truly immune. Xiao Ran tried it himself too. Sure enough, the toxin that was excruciatingly painful to touch before had no effect on him at all. As if it was ordinary water. He didn't give up, using his spatial perception to look, refine, strengthen, get me to the atomic level. However, Xiao Ran couldn't see any difference between this liquid and water. Besides, it was a glass of pure water. The two were completely indistinguishable, but in fact, Ching-May and the others had applied this very liquid during their evolution. How strange. Is this like getting a vaccine, one shot, lifelong immunity? Zhang Jingya, on the other hand, was extremely disappointed and started crying. Is there only one chance to evolve? It's over. It's okay. I'll figure something out, Xiao Ran said. This wasn't just comforting her. He genuinely had such an idea. He had observed the process of energy seeds strengthening cells many times. So, if he could master this process, couldn't he skip the energy seed and directly modify the human body to achieve the effect of evolution? At worst, there would just be no special ability, but at least one could become a physical type. Zhang Jingya's evolution failed. So naturally there were no side effects or sequelae, but Xiao Ran still called together the girls who had finished evolving to deeply study human anatomy and learn knowledge. Another new day. Today is Su Xinran's critical point for evolution. Su Ching-May was by her sister's side early on, looking worried. Actually, Xiao Ran just couldn't guarantee everyone would evolve successfully, but ensuring survival rate was absolutely not a problem. But, after all, she was the older sister. Concern leads to confusion. Xiao Ran went out during the day, as usual. Today he brought green tea. The two were lovey-dovey all the way to Xiangqing district. Because they knew Luo Yafay also lived at the gas group, they went directly there. From afar, Xiao Ran scanned with a spatial perception and found many people here. So, Boss Luo hadn't run away. Was it that Gao Liang hadn't looked for him? Or was Boss Luo full of confidence, thinking that Xiao someone was easy to deal with? Xiao Ran continued to observe. Right now, there were nearly 100 people in the gas group, mostly ordinary people. There were only a mere 11 ability users, but each was very strong. Extrapolating from their cell strength, it was estimated that each person had absorbed no less than 10 portions. Also, Xiao Ran saw many people lying in bed, all with fevers. So, Luo Yafay was also artificially creating ability users. It's just that his side didn't have a spatial ability user like Xiao Ran, so these test subjects could only fend for themselves or perish. However, Xiao Ran didn't find any corpses. The experiment failed, and there's a 90% chance of failure. So what about the corpses? Even if they exploded and became a bloody mess, there should still be body parts. Where did they go? Could it be that this group of people even eats corpses? That shouldn't be. Xiao Ran saw that they still had a considerable amount of stored supplies. So unless there was a cannibalistic demon, why would they eat corpses? These 100 people, apart from the 11 ability users, were all women, and all of them beautiful. So, the reason why they weren't sent to the experimental table could be understood. They were Luo Yafay and the others' playthings. Men, all used as test subjects. Those who succeeded in evolving would be killed and their abilities absorbed. And those who didn't succeed, either they died on their own or were killed. In short, you wouldn't be allowed to waste food. Xiao Ran couldn't help but shake his head. In these times, you really don't see any saints. Anyone who can become a regional hegemon. Which one isn't a ruthless and cruel figure? However, Luo Yafay wasn't here, because the 11 ability users here were all of similar levels, but Luo Yafay definitely had to be much stronger. Did he go to find people or supplies? Xiao Ran originally planned to go back first. There wasn't enough time today. He would come back in a few days to wipe out this place, lest he alert the enemy and scare Luo Yafay away. But he discovered a person, Lu Qing. Who was Lu Qing? His direct superior from his previous company. No wonder he wasn't seen at the farm before. It turns out he ran here. But why didn't he go to the team-building event? Did something come up unexpectedly? However, old Lu was doing very well. Because he had become an ability user, he was in charge of guarding the supplies. There were 2 braziers lit in the room, a beautiful woman sitting on each of his thighs, and he was groping them up and down, having a great time. Xiao Ran remembered that when he was at the company, he was often given a hard time by this bastard. Because he was always honest and hardworking, Lu Qing would often force some work on him that wasn't his responsibility, looked down on him, and often mocked him to his face. If it weren't for Xiao Ran being busy collecting supplies after his rebirth, he would have, one way or another, gone to the company to publicly slap this bastard's face and show off for once. Also to avoid being accused of padding the story or something. Now that he's encountered him, an idea struck Xiao Ran. His hands were suddenly full of many stones. Then the stones disappeared one by one, replaced by bags of rice, boxes of frozen seafood, and instant noodles. In just a few minutes, he had almost emptied the warehouse. Old Lu, how are you going to explain this to Luo Yafay? Will Luo Yafay believe you know nothing? Or will he think you're the one stealing what you're supposed to guard? Gone. Xiao Ran brought Zhao Yansu home. A large amount of supplies vanished without a trace. Lu Qing, this guard, absolutely could not shirk responsibility. It was just unknown how Luo Yafay would punish him. Kill him and absorb his ability, or something else. I'll come again tomorrow. Come earlier, Otherwise, I won't make it back in time. Wait, I can bring tomorrow's patient along. Xiao Ran slapped his head, feeling he was so stupid. His thinking was limited. If Luo Yafay was at the gas group tomorrow, he would make his move. If not, then he would wait a bit longer. Otherwise, once he alerted the enemy, it would be very difficult to find him. Ability users were hard to be trapped by such severe cold. If they wanted to get out, there were naturally ways. Maybe old Luo had run off to Kunqing, or even a Modu. The world is vast, heaven and earth are boundless, and now there's no sky eye available. Where could one find him? If only the power and network systems weren't down. I have Xiao, such a trump card. I could find you wherever you hide. Xiao Ran felt it was somewhat regrettable. 3 hours later, the hovercraft returned to Qingfeng Garden. 2:49 p.m. Still early. However, when the time reached past 8 in the evening, Su Xinran began to condense an energy seed. Yet, this time too, it was declared a failure. Xiao Ran had clearly exhausted all means, but the energy seed in Su Xinran's mind just couldn't condense. This really wasn't his fault. Some people just couldn't become ability users. He announced the result. Su Xinran was naturally extremely dejected, and Su Ching-May was the same. If her younger sister could become an ability user, then in such an apocalypse, it would certainly increase their safety factor. But it doesn't matter. She immediately clenched her fists again. At worst, she would protect her younger sister. Just like always. Zhang Jingya, on the other hand, breathed a slight sigh of relief. She wasn't the only failure. Who was it tomorrow? Han Yun. Tomorrow I'll take her to Luo Yafay's place. The next day, Xiao Ran climbed out from the pile of women, stretched, came to the window, and looked out, as usual. A blinding glare. Xiao Ran's pupils constricted slightly, and he immediately adapted. The snow reflected light before, but it wasn't this intense. Xiao Ran was suddenly stunned. What did he see? Sunlight. The sun's out? The damn sun's out. Xiao Ran was incredulous, then excitedly woke up everyone who had finished evolving. When he told them about the sun being out, all the women were naturally shocked and couldn't believe it. But, as long as one looked toward the window, sunlight was faintly visible. All at once, everyone was excited and thrilled. Where does life come from? The sun, or more precisely, sunlight. Sunlight provides the energy for all things to grow. And since the apocalypse began, the entire sky had been covered by thick clouds, never dispersing, so the sun also hadn't shown its face for more than 70 days. Xiao Ran squinted at the sun in the sky. However, even though his body had undergone so many enhancements, his eyes still couldn't look directly at the sun, and he quickly turned his head away. Vast and cloudless. This strange weather. Initially, it inexplicably hailed, then dense cloud layers, and, at night, heavy fog enveloped everything. This damn weather, didn't it violate the laws of nature? It was the same now. The thick clouds dispersed just like that, completely unscientific. The sun coming out was a good thing, and with plants also potentially evolving, it meant life would be sustained, instead of relying on old reserves. If all the stored food was consumed, humans would be like dead crabs, inevitably perishing after 2 or 3 generations. But now it was different. The flame of life was preserved. Then, Xiao Ran's brows couldn't help but furrow. The clouds had dispersed, allowing sunlight to shine down, which was naturally very good, but this would also bring a very small disadvantage. Satellites. It had only been a little over 2 months. Most satellites in the sky should still be operating normally. So, once the clouds dispersed, the ground could be monitored via satellite. He had that tiny possibility of being exposed to certain people's eyes. Chuchio, can you make some kind of jammer to prevent satellites from filming me? He asked Xia Chuchio. Xia Chuchio quickly shook her head. If my ability were 100 million points stronger, enough to reach the satellites, then I could completely control the satellites, possess their complete control. But, separated by tens of thousands of kilometers, I am powerless. Xiao Ran was a bit unhappy. Although there were only a few satellites in the sky, and he wasn't in geostationary orbit, the time he would be scanned by satellites each day was just a little while. But even if there was a 1 in 10,000 chance, he still felt a bit unsafe. But what could be done? In the future, when outdoors, I'll try to wear a hat. He didn't set off immediately but stayed at home, watching Su Ching-May and the other girls display their beautiful figures in the swimming pool, while in his heart he was looking forward to all 12 golden flowers finishing their evolution, all dancing gracefully in the pool, all wearing yoga pants kneeling in a circle. TSK, TSK. After lunch, and waiting a while longer, Xiao Ran then set off. However, he was still a bit more careful. He first space-swapped himself and Han Yun several times to a distant place, then took out the hovercraft, carried Teacher Han onto the boat, and he started the boat and set off. Being a little careful is always right. More than 3 hours later, the two arrived 3 kilometers outside Luo Yafay's old lair. Xiao Ran put away the hovercraft, carried Han Yun to a tall building. From here, he could overlook the entire gas group. He took out a storage battery, connected a heater, completely unworried that the low temperature would freeze Han Yun. Past 5 o'clock, Han Yun began her final evolution. Xiao Ran looked at the sky. Because there was no cloud cover, and it was mid-August, the sky was still very bright, and the heavy fog showed no signs of appearing. He didn't know if it would wait until dark to appear, or if it had disappeared with the arrival of sunlight. He couldn't be bothered with these things and decisively intervened. Banishment unfolded. He controlled the energy, strengthening it bit by bit. The energy seed formed bit by bit. This time it should work, he said in his heart. Sure enough, just an hour later, Han Yun successfully condensed an energy seed, which then suddenly shattered, nourishing every cell in her body and bringing about some kind of indescribable change. She had an ability. Teacher Han, Xiao Ran called out. Han Yun opened her eyes, her large eyes enchanting. Some women are valiant and heroic, giving an inviolable feeling. Some women are bitchy, making people want to bully them. Some women are naturally enchanting, making people think of bed as soon as they see them. Han Yun was like this. She was actually a decent person, never thought of attracting attention, but she happened to be born with a seductive charm. Every frown and smile, every glance was so captivating, soul-stirring. Xiao Ran really wanted to bully her now. I have an ability, Han Yun said excitedly, and thus did not notice the thoughts in Xiao Ran's eyes. What ability? Xiao Ran asked, while at the same time couldn't resist starting to use his hands. TSK, this perky butt. Actually, she hadn't trained much, but it was just so full and perky. One could only say she was naturally blessed. Han Yun smiled enchantingly, suddenly circled Xiao Ran 3 times. Han Yun didn't walk around Xiao Ran 3 times, but like a beautiful snake, coiled around Xiao Ran's body 3 times. Xiao Ran had seen people who practiced contortionism, like acrobats or gymnasts, all had incredibly flexible bodies, but who could coil around a person 3 times? Humans, after all, are not snakes. But Han Yun did it. Her body seemed as if it had no bones. What kind of ability is this? Xiao Ran was a bit dumbfounded. I don't know either. Han Yun shook her head. I feel I can extend and retract every part of my body, including bones, and I can even squeeze through the smallest holes. Your ability is for being a thief, right? Freely retractable, like a spring? Huh, way Lily. No. Xiao Ran quickly shook his head. Different. That fat woman's body was too eye-searing, but our teacher Han, beautiful, enchanting, slender, hot. Completely different. Not a single similar point, all right. Xiao Ran tried it. Besides being able to freely extend and retract her body, Han Yun's skin, muscles, bones, and even blood vessels possessed astonishing elasticity. When a punch was thrown, her body would naturally bounce, able to deflect a great deal of attack power. However, as long as the force was great enough, she wouldn't have time to deflect it and would instead be shattered. This was very normal. She was currently only at a level 1. No. Only a fool would let such a body go in a battle. Xiao Ran, I'm so hot. Han Yun's eyes were like silk, full of charm. Unbearable. No need to endure further. Just how soul-stirring is it? Let me test the poison with my own body. TSK, I am too great. Poison testing complete. Xiao Ran had no other thoughts besides sighing with emotion. It felt heavenly. He looked. It was already dark outside. The heavy fog still came. Very good. Xiao Ran just liked this kind of heavy fog. It could allow his spatial perception to be utilized to the extreme. From a visual perspective alone, in an outdoor environment, even if he stood 1 meter away from others couldn't possibly see him. And as for him, he could detect targets nearly 2,000 meters away and even clearly see what they looked like, even if one was big and one was small. So, this fog-shrouded wilderness was his home ground. Advance and retreat freely. Fight if I want. Leave if I don't want to fight. Who can keep him? Obediently wait for me here, Xiao Ran said with a smile. MHM. Han Yun obediently agreed. This MHM came from her nose, full of sexiness and laziness, making Xiao Ran almost give up his plan to go out. No, I can't be a fatuous ruler. Xiao Ran forced himself out with firm will. After coming downstairs, he approached the gas group. He could actually use spatial swap to travel quickly, but this ability had a usage limit. Although it was nearly 200 times, why use it if there was no need? What if? Besides, couldn't he just walk a few steps? Arriving more than 1,800 meters outside the gas group, the situation inside the gas group began to appear in Xiao Ran's mind. And as he approached, more situations emerged one by one. When he reached outside the perimeter wall, the entire gas group was almost completely under his control. He saw Lu Qing. Yesterday, this guy had a beauty in his arms, looking like a winner in life. But today, he was miserable, actually hung upside down outside, wearing only a pair of shorts with several whip marks on his back, but not dead. After all, he's an ability user, his body is tough, not so easy to die. Why was Lu Qing hung upside down? Need you ask? It must be because the warehouse was robbed yesterday. Even if Luo Yafay believed he was innocent, you were asked to guard the warehouse, yet you let someone silently steal all the supplies. How can you convince the public without punishing him? However, just hanging and beating without killing and absorbing his ability. Could it be that Lu Qing is Luo Yafay's elder brother-in-law? Obviously couldn't be a younger brother-in-law, because Luo Yafay is only in his 30s, while Lu Qing is over 40. He started looking for Luo Yafay again. Found him. This person was clearly a cut above the others currently sitting, and in front of him was a person at the end of their evolution, writhing on the ground, appearing extremely pained. Bang! Suddenly this person exploded, flesh and blood flying, bone fragments everywhere. But just as the foul blood was about to splash on a Luo Yafay, a man beside him reached out and pressed forward, and all this splashing flesh and blood was blocked by an invisible wall. Then, this person withdrew his ability, and all the foul blood and minced flesh fell to the ground. Luo Yafay frowned, shook his head. The success rate is really low. The man beside him withdrew his hand, expressionless, as if he couldn't speak. Xiao Ran had a sudden idea. After I swap someone out, can I directly throw them into the space gate? If possible, then in the future, wouldn't it be that no matter how many enemy troops there are, I can directly invite the general out for a one-on-one duel and kill? Try it. He threw up a small pebble, tossing it about 3 meters high, then locked one end onto this pebble and the other end onto Luo Yafay. In that instant, Luo Yafay's hairs suddenly stood on end, an indescribable palpitation arising. Danger! Extremely dangerous! Jang, he shouted loudly. Whoosh, in the next moment, his entire person suddenly and bizarrely disappeared, and in the place where he sat, there was now a stone. The man beside him, old boss, developed a new ability? Switch perspective, outside the gas group. Ming! A man appeared out of thin air, shouting from his mouth. Then his body fell from a height of 3 meters. Luo Yafay showed a look of fear, because that sense of danger was even stronger. The space gate was opening beneath him. Please enter the trap, don't be polite. Luo Yafay hurriedly used his ability. Boom! His whole body was burning with flames, as if he had gained the ability to fly, just burning fiercely in the sky, neither rising nor falling. Is this the hot air balloon principle? Body burning, filled with hot gas, making its density comparable to air, so it neither floats nor sinks? Damn it. I can't make this up anymore. Forget it. I'll give you a hand. Xiao Ran used space compression, then released a corner. Suddenly, the fireman Luo Yafay had transformed and it seemed like it was mounted on a rocket, crashing towards the space gate. Although Luo Yafay was panicking like hell, he was also inexplicably shocked. Who sits properly in a chair, but the next moment appears outdoors, inexplicably ejected? Who wouldn't be extremely panicked? Who the hell is messing with me? Where are my subordinates? Why do I have to solo such an unknown danger? However, he had no time to think because he had to wholeheartedly save himself. Never before had death been so close. Boom! A large amount of flames suddenly erupted from behind Luo Yafay, but his entire body, like an ignited rocket, burst forth with astonishing power, forcefully neutralizing the thrust from the spatial compression. Then, with a stagger, he finally planted his feet firmly on the ground and steadied himself. All this takes a long time to tell, but it actually happened in an instant. Luo Yafay was spatially swapped out, nearly fell directly into the space gate, and then was compressed by space, transforming into a rocket to create counterthrust, thus averting this crisis. Only then did Luo Yafay catch his breath, his face extremely unsightly. This move of erupting flames all over his body consumed a great deal of his superpower. He was now drenched in sweat, but more so in fear. He hadn't even seen the enemy's face, yet he had almost died twice. Moreover, he was clearly indoors, so how did he inexplicably end up outdoors? Who Who are you? He roared, boom, 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 launching large fireballs from his hands. These fireballs were extremely hot, capable of easily melting steel, but they still couldn't penetrate the fog. After traveling more than a meter, only a faint glow could be seen, which grew weaker with distance and eventually disappeared. No, there was one place where it didn't. Luo Yafay suddenly turned to look ahead. In that direction, the fireball had abruptly extinguished. Or rather, it had vanished. Come out. What's the point of being so sneaky? Come out. If you want to kill me, then stand out here for me. He taunted loudly. You have the guts to attack me, but not the guts to face me. Pfft. Amidst a light chuckle, a steel rebar had already shot over, followed by the words, Aren't I standing right in front of you? You can't see clearly, and you blame others? Do you want me to get in your face and unleash an ultimate move? How fast was a sonic speed rebar? And it wasn't something the naked eye could track as it zipped through the fog. Even if a sense of crisis arose in Luo Yafay's heart, he couldn't dodge it. He was pierced by the rebar. However, the rebar passed through his body, leaving a fist-sized wound on his chest and one larger than a bowl on his back. But what flowed from the wounds was not blood, but surging flames. Luo Yafay's face paled a few more shades, but the wound was actually healing rapidly, soon disappearing completely. If not for the 2 holes in his clothes, showing that his body had indeed been pierced, one would really think nothing had happened. TSK, very impressive. Indeed, as time went on, superpowered individuals absorbed more and more superpower, becoming stronger and stronger. Previously, the sonic speed rebar was an absolute killer weapon, but now it couldn't even kill someone hit. If those like Luo Yafay absorbed a bit more superpower, how much stronger and more difficult to deal with would they become? At least not now, Xiao Ran said faintly. With a thought, spatial compression activated again. Since you can generate thrust and counter thrust like a rocket taking off, I won't use spatial compression to sling you, but directly crush you to death. So what if you turn to flames? I'll crush you down to the atomic level. Let's see if you still don't die. Luo Yafay wanted to speak, but the terrifying sense of oppression assailed him again. He couldn't move, and his bones creaked as if they were about to shatter completely in an instant. Luo Yafay was greatly alarmed and instinctively activated his superpower. Boom! His entire body ignited with flames again, and powerful air currents erupted from within him to counter this immensely strong, oppressive force. This was very simple. It was a contest of who had stronger power. Luo Yafay was clearly no match. Space compressed bit by bit, and Luo Yafay's face turned increasingly unsightly and wretched bit by bit. I'm going to die. Don't kill me. I can defect to you. Luo Yafay shouted. He was a local tyrant, but even tyrants feared death. Besides, as long as his life could be preserved, there was naturally a chance for a comeback. Didn't someone like Han Xin endure the humiliation of crawling between someone's legs? And didn't he ultimately achieve great deeds? A figure walked out of the fog, and, at this moment, the spatial compression also extinguished the last flame on Luo Yafay's body. Luo Yafay's eyeballs instantly bulged out of their sockets due to the terrible pressure. Therefore, that figure was also the last image he saw in his life. Then, he immediately turned into a pile of bloody mud. A bit disgusting. Xiao Ran winced, retracting the spatial compression. Just a tiny bit of contact with the bloody mud, and instantly, a warm current surged. The range of his spatial perception immediately expanded, plus 112 meters. So, old Luo had probably absorbed about 111 units of superpower. Not strong, not even close to Valor strong. Xiao Ran didn't stop, but continued to use spatial exchange. And at the gas company, the guy who was previously beside Luo Yafay, after a moment of spacing out, immediately rushed out, shouting, Something's wrong. Something's wrong. After a few shouts, all the superpowered people in the company came running, including Lu Qing. A mere rope certainly couldn't restrain a superpowered individual. It was just that Lu Qing hadn't dared to struggle before. But now it was different. His companion was screaming in such panic, so he naturally took the opportunity to escape, feeling secretly delighted that this bizarre warehouse theft incident could finally be over. What happened? Oh, where's the boss? Everyone asked one after another. There were 18 people in total. The man beside Luo Yafay was just about to speak, but in the next moment, he bizarrely disappeared. Thwack! A small stone fell to the ground, right under everyone's noses. Damn it! Everyone looked at each other, completely speechless. This scene was truly too bizarre. Ah! A very short cry of alarm sounded. Everyone turned their heads to look, only to see that the place where the cry had come from was now empty. Another small stone fell from midair. This time, endless fear instantly enveloped everyone's hearts. "Run," someone said immediately. "Where to?" someone else said faintly, their voice tinged with helplessness and trembling. Yes, it wasn't daytime now. The outside was sealed by fog, and running out would definitely lead to getting lost. Don't look at how strong superpowered individuals were. The temperature at night now was as low as -60 or 70 degrees. Non-physical type, ice attribute, or fire attribute individuals simply couldn't resist it for long. But the fog happened to block this path. If one was unlucky, spending the whole night wandering outside without finding shelter was also very normal. Therefore, escaping the gas company was tantamount to a game of great escape with 9 deaths and 1 life. There are many of us. As long as we unite, that enemy, that unseen danger, won't be able to do anything to us, someone else said. That's right. No matter who the enemy is, seeing as he has to separate us one by one to defeat us, it means his strength is at most twice ours. As long as we unite, we can definitely resist. More people echoed. Come, everyone form a circle. They formed a circle, but before the circle was even complete, another short cry of alarm, and a third person disappeared. In their place was still a small stone falling from midair. For a moment, everyone was so scared their souls nearly left their bodies. Too bizarre. Too terrifying. This kind of unseen enemy was the most frightening. Where would the next attack come from? Lost, clueless, this created even greater pressure, and everyone was drenched in cold sweat. However, their defensive circle had also formed. 15 people faced outward, shoulder to shoulder. This should be okay, right? A cry of alarm, a person disappearing, a stone falling to the ground. The familiar formula, unchanged. The remaining 14 people couldn't help but shiver. This wasn't working either? Hold hands, a quick-witted person suddenly said. Right. You want to make people disappear, but you should only be able to do one at a time. If we hold hands, forcibly turning 14 people into a single entity, then it would be impossible for you to make one person disappear. Either no one would disappear, or everyone would disappear together. As long as the 14 of us are together, what we need to fear. Since you're hiding in the dark and don't dare to show yourself, it means you're no match for so many of us. The 14 people immediately clasped hands tightly. However, what was bound to happen still happened. 2 people simultaneously felt their hands loosen and saw their companions beside them disappear. Just vanished into thin air. Thwack! A small stone fell from midair. This wasn't working either. The 13 people were indescribably panicked, feeling as if their bile was about to be vomited out. Could it be that those people didn't actually disappear, but turned into stones? Someone suddenly said. Right. This must also be his superpower. Just like Medusa's petrification. Everyone chimed in, trying to piece together the truth. Everyone close your eyes. Yes, Medusa's petrification ability needs to be activated through eye contact. So, the 13 people quickly closed their eyes. And outside, Xiao Ran couldn't help but have a strange expression on his face. Your associative abilities are truly rich. However, exchanging people for stones seems to be lacking something. How about using cards, with a portrait printed on them, plus 1 or 2 pretentious lines? Wouldn't that instantly elevate the style? Chu Liuxiang, the bandit chief. Feasible. Xiao Ran smiled, and with a thought, the tossed stone immediately disappeared, and then a superpowered individual appeared out of thin air, falling into the space gate without any suspense. Almost no struggle. Don't just look at it as falling from a few meters high. Even an ordinary person wouldn't die from such a fall. But this move alone was enough to trap and kill 99% of superpowered individuals. Just ask, how can you gain leverage in midair to avoid falling? You can't, right? If you can't, you can only fall into the space gate, and then. There's no then. This move was a sure shot, easy and simple. But one must know, when did the ability of spatial exchange emerge? Xiao Ran had absorbed over 1,000 units of superpower. So, with the power of 1,000 units of superpower, can I easily handle you rookies who are only equivalent to 10 or 20 units? Using even one extra move would be disgraceful. Xiao Ran tossed another stone. A person appeared out of thin air and then immediately disappeared. It was as easy as a fish pond bursting its banks. Just place a net at the breach, and the fish would jump in by themselves. Continue. Thus, the stones in Xiao Ran's hand disappeared one by one, and the superpowered individuals in the gas company also disappeared one by one. 1 stone for 1 person, very fair. Finally, only 1 person was left in the gas company. Lu Qing. He was extremely panicked, letting out a terrified cry, not caring about anything, he ran. He immediately activated his ability, his body covered in scales, his hands turning into claws, and a tail grew out from behind his buttocks. He had become, pangolin. Without a word, Lu Qing started digging at the solid floor tiles indoors. Say what you will, superpowered individuals were indeed formidable. The marble was instantly dug into a hole by him. In less than 3 seconds, his entire body had disappeared inside, showcasing his incredible digging speed. But suddenly, he felt a chill, and his claws swung out, hitting nothing but air. Damn it! Lu Qing was shocked to find himself face-planting in the snow, not underground at all, so naturally his claw swipe cut through the air. What was going on? I was clearly digging underground. How did I end up on the snow while digging? And still outside the gas company? What the hell? Lu Qing was truly terrified. Tears and snot streamed down his face as he stammered. Big brother. Boss. Don't kill me as long as you spare my life. I'll do anything. Spare me. Spare me. How many people were in their group before? 18. But now only he was left. So, this mysterious enemy was simply not someone he could fight against. Fight, and die for sure. Beg for mercy, and there might still be a sliver of hope. Lu Qing had always believed that he who understands the times is a wise man. If you can't beat them, of course you kneel and beg for mercy. This wasn't before the cataclysm, when no one dared to kill. Just then, a figure also emerged from the fog. Only Lu Qing, this one superpowered individual, was left, and his abilities were known, his strength roughly equivalent to 10 units of superpower energy. Knowing oneself and knowing the enemy, there was absolutely no room for variables, which was why Xiao Ran dared to show himself. After all, this was an acquaintance. Lu Qing also noticed someone appearing and slightly raised his head. He had to take a look, right? Besides, to flatter someone, one had to see them clearly to speak. Otherwise, praising them for being handsome for a long time only to find out it was a woman. Wouldn't that be ridiculous? Xiao Ran. But after seeing the person's appearance, Lu Qing couldn't help but widen his eyes, his face full of disbelief. How could it be? This honest man who worked diligently in the company, never participated in any activities, and went home as soon as work ended? No, it absolutely couldn't be Xiao Ran. He must be a subordinate of that mysterious and powerful expert. Yes, it must be so. Thinking this, coupled with his long-standing sense of superiority over Xiao Ran, the reverence and fear on Lu Qing's face immediately dissipated by more than half. He waved his hand and said, "You step aside. The one I'm paying respects to is that mysterious and powerful boss." Xiao Ran smiled slightly, and with a casual lift of his hand, Lu Qing's body bounced up into the air. Spatial compression could definitely be developed for more uses. Bouncing up and down, up and down. Lu Qing was scared stiff. The mysterious big shot was actually Xiao Ran. Damn it. He had actually always looked down on Xiao Ran. Honest people, weren't they supposed to be bullied? But now, the big shot was actually the once honest Xiao Ran. Unacceptable. He stared blankly at Xiao Ran. After several seconds, he adjusted his mindset and said, Brother Xiao, from now on, I'll be your dog. I'll bite whoever you tell me to bite. Moreover, my superpower is very practical. I can dig holes. It's so cold outside now, but underground can maintain a constant temperature. I can dig a huge underground base for you, so that Boss Xiao can gather a large number of subordinates. From then on, we will rule Su City. No, Su Province, the whole country, the whole world. The more he spoke, the more excited he became, as if he had truly seen that day. Xiao Ran, however, didn't feel the thrill of showing off in front of others. Perhaps Lu Qing was too weak, giving him no sense of accomplishment from his posturing. This kind of trash wasn't even good enough to exclaim, "Boss is awesome" from the sidelines. Forget it. With a turn of his thoughts, spatial cutting activated, and Lu Qing silently fell. Xiao Ran returned to Hanyun. He began to absorb superpowers, and left one body for Teacher Han. Why? He didn't want Hanyun to be his support on the battlefield, but after absorbing superpowers, there would be side effects. If both sides are like that, TSK, it would truly be dry wood meeting raging fire, capable of burning through the heavens. This was called adding to the fun. Besides, Teacher Han was now like an acrobat. What if her superpower was strengthened a bit more? Hiss, how exhilarating would that be? Moreover, Luo Yafay subordinates were only at the 10-unit superpower level. Xiao Ran was still willing to share such a tiny bit of superpower with his woman. After all, he was the one who could enjoy it continuously. It wasn't a free gift. Xiao Ran, on the other hand, absorbed the superpowers of 17 people. Apart from Luo Yafay, the big one, The superpower energy of the others was around 10 units, a huge gap compared to Wei Lily's forces. But no matter what, he had absorbed about 280 units of superpower energy in total. His spatial perception finally broke through 2 kilometers, reaching 2,130 meters. It wasn't far from controlling the whole world, at most only tens of thousands of times off, haha. Xiao Ran thought optimistically. Soon, the side effect for both of them began to manifest. There was no need to endure this at all, just go all out. Han Yun suddenly gained 10 units of superpower, which was a direct 10-fold increase in strength. Her body became even more delicate, full of elasticity and toughness. In a sense, she was also a compressor. This is incredible. 7 thorns on 1 leaf. The sky finally brightened. Xiao Ran felt a sense of emptiness. Go home. The two of them drove the boat back. Xiao Ran deliberately repainted the hovercraft with white paint, so that even if someone scanned it with a satellite, it would be almost impossible to find in the vast snowy plains. Better safe than sorry. Xiao Ran didn't want to attract anyone's attention, especially the national power. In his view, although the country had initiated the kindling project and there might be large underground cities preserving a large number of survivors, superpowered individuals were the biggest variable. Perhaps those underground cities had already been seized by superpowered individuals, or were in the process of being seized. Therefore, the power to launch missiles, even nuclear weapons, might already be in the hands of a certain individual or group of superpowered individuals. Xiao Ran's banishment could ignore all attacks, but it had a time limit. Even if the safety factor reached 99%, wasn't there still a 1% danger? Being a little careful wouldn't hurt. About 3 hours later, Xiao Ran brought Han Yun back to Qing Garden. Learning that Han Yun had successfully evolved, all the women were a little happy for a while. This proved that the success rate of evolution was still quite high. Only Zhang Jingya felt a little lost. After all, Han Yun was her sister-in-law. However, as long as she and Han Yun still had that relationship, Xiao Ran probably wouldn't get tired of her. She was worried about gains and losses. Xiao Ran took a look. Today was Zhang Yuning, Officer Zhang's evolution day. He had just wiped out Luo Yafay's group, and Cheng Qian had taken all his subordinates and fled to Sister Qin's place. So looking at the Sioux City area, there were no large superpowered individual forces left. So, the next enemy is Sister Qin's group? I need to scout them out first. After all, this force is very strange. With over 1,000 superpowered individuals, it's really like seeing a ghost. What exactly is Sister Qin's ability to be able to mass-produce superpowered individuals? Xiao Ran looked at Xia Chuqiu and suddenly had an idea. You can't directly control satellites, but if you connect to a satellite with a mobile phone first, can it succeed? Xia Chuqiu was also stunned, hesitating for a moment before saying, I can try. Actually, this wasn't a very novel idea, just hadn't thought of it before. Xiao Ran handed her the phone. Xia Chuqiu took it and started waving it in the sky, aiming at the satellite. After a while, it indicated a successful connection, and she activated her ability. Invading satellite, progress 1%, 7%, 15%. The phone suddenly emitted an electronically synthesized voice. Xia Chuqiu was controlling the phone to speak, right? She could indeed do it, but to say she was fully focused on invading the satellite and had no time to speak. She could even control the phone to provide a progress bar, so it seemed speaking wouldn't affect her. One can only say that everyone has some quirks. These strange little problems don't matter. 85%, 94%, 100%. Xia Chuqiu smiled sweetly at Xiao Ran. Success. Take a look at Sister Qin's base, Xiao Ran said immediately. Xia Chuqiu's eyes flickered with a strange light, and then an image appeared on the phone screen. It was an overhead view taken from the sky, the main subject being a snowfield. But on the snowfield, there was an entrance to a cave, and the entrance was not small enough for a heavy truck to enter and exit. Vaguely, people could be seen standing guard. So, Sister Qin's base was built underground. Xiao Ran thought of He Chunhua's description of the New World. They even raised livestock and grew vegetables. It was warm underground, so it was indeed possible to raise pigs and chickens, but how to grow vegetables? As everyone knows, plant growth requires photosynthesis, and it's completely dark underground, where the light come from. Without light, there's no energy, so how can plants grow? Was He Chunhua talking nonsense? Or was there something else to it? Xia Chuqiu suddenly frowned, a look of anger on her face. What's wrong? Xiao Ran asked. Someone is fighting with me for control of the satellite, Xia Chuqiu replied. Well, I'm so angry. So angry. She almost threw the phone in anger, her hand already raised, but after thinking about it, she gently put it down, though her face was full of displeasure. I was banned by that guy. Huh. Xiao Ran didn't quite understand. Xiao Chuchio said, oh, and explained, it means I was kicked out of the system by that person. Damn it, if I weren't indirectly connected through the phone, I could snatch back control in minutes. Her ability was to control all electrical appliances, as long as they were powered. But now it was like a strong man trying to lift heavy objects with an embroidery needle. Her own strength was perfectly fine, but the embroidery needle couldn't bear such force. So it wasn't that her ability was insufficient, but that she couldn't fully utilize it, which made her very unhappy. Xiao Ran couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. Is it possible for the other party to trace us back through the satellite and find us? You can rest assured about that. I've already cleared the intrusion information. The other party can't find us, Xiao Chuchio said confidently. Xiao Ran rested his chin on his hand. Can you roughly pinpoint the location of that contender? Xiao Chuchio shook her head. The other party is also very cautious and hasn't shown any flaws. It's like, she tried to give an example Xiao Ran could understand. It's like two hackers fighting for control of a server. Naturally, they wouldn't use their own computers to connect directly, but would use compromised machines as springboards. Never mind, you better not explain. The more you explain, the more confused I get. Xiao Ran only needed to know the result. That was, Xiao Chuchio couldn't find the other party's location, but the other party also didn't know where they were. Xiao Ran pondered. It was now impossible to use satellites to monitor Sister Qin's base. Xiao Chuchio had even been kicked out of the satellite system. Therefore, the only way to check on Sister Qin's territory was to go there himself. Go today. Yes, set out at night. There was still heavy fog at night, and his spatial perception had exceeded 2 kilometers, so there was basically no possibility of getting lost. Night was his home ground. Moreover, today was just for reconnaissance. He didn't plan to fight. Sister Qin's faction was very strange, and he was also very curious. At the very least, he really wanted to know the secret of how Sister Qin could mass-produce superpowered individuals. Wait until all the girls have completed their evolution, then go undercover? Xiao Ran was not afraid of going deep into the enemy's lair at all now. Not only did he have the invincible skill of banishment, but he could also quickly retreat through spatial exchange, completely unafraid of being besieged. He could advance to attack and retreat to defend. The battle hadn't even started, and I'm already in an invincible position. How can I possibly lose? When it came to combat power, Xiao Ran didn't dare to boast that he was the strongest, but when it came to life-saving ability, if he claimed to be second, probably no one would dare to claim first. During the day, nothing to do. Eating, exercising, resting, playing poker with the girls, playing poker with the girls and girls, playing poker with the girls, girls and girls. Soon a day passed. At night, because he had already slept during the day, Xiao Ran was full of energy. Let's go. He carried Jiang Yuning onto the hovercraft and set off towards the destination. Wujiang was not small, and Sister Qin's base was unfortunately in the southeast corner, a full 40 kilometers from Qingfeng Garden. So, the hovercraft took over an hour to reach the place. Xiao Ran did not get off the boat, because Jiang Yuning had reached the critical moment of her evolution. Xiao Ran intervened, skillfully deploying banishment, controlling the vast amount of rampant energy, reducing the difficulty for Jiang Yuning to condense the energy seed by 10 times, or even more. In natural evolution, the possibility of dying from failure was as high as 90%. This showed that condensing the energy seed was very dangerous, hence the 90% mortality rate. But, once this problem was solved, wouldn't it be possible to increase the success rate of evolution to the same 90%? Look at Ching-May, Zhao Yansu, and the others, all successfully evolved. This probability was far beyond 1 in 1,000. Never mind. Let's push Officer Jiang to become a superpowered individual first. Xiao Ran operated skillfully, and after an hour, Jiang Yuning let out a soft moan and woke up. Xiao Ran. Jiang Yuning was still a bit dazed. Xiao Ran smiled. Congratulations, you've successfully awakened your superpower. Ah! Jiang Yuning was startled and instantly came to her senses, involuntarily sitting up straight. Really? Whether it's real or not, why don't you experience it yourself? Xiao Ran said. Jiang Yuning sensed it, then showed a look of pleasant surprise. I really have superpowers. Xiao Ran was also a bit curious and said, What is it? Jiang Yuning thought for a moment. Hold out your hand. Still being mysterious. Xiao Ran extended his left hand. Both. Jiang Yuning said again. All right. Xiao Ran also extended his right hand. Placing both hands side by side like that, TSK, it felt very much like being apprehended. Jiang Yuning, however, smiled and clasped Xiao Ran's wrists with both her hands. A bizarre scene occurred. Xiao Ran was shocked to find himself handcuffed. But just now, Jiang Yuning's hands were clearly empty. Is this your ability? Xiao Ran asked in surprise. Jiang Yuning hummed in agreement. I seem to be able to lock anything. Xiao Ran struggled forcefully. Even though he wasn't a physical type, his body had been strengthened so many times that it was much stronger than many physical types. So the handcuff shattered, turning into countless specks of starlight, and then quickly disappeared. Huh, this isn't a solid entity? Xiao Ran looked at Jiang Yuning. Officer Jiang, these aren't real handcuffs? Jiang Yuning couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. Every time this guy called her officer, he was thinking lewd thoughts. However, a desire was also rising deep within her, making her bright and pretty face bloom like a rose, vibrant and kissable. No, it seems to be a materialization of some kind of energy able to last for about an hour. It will dissipate on its own when the time is up. Jiang Yuning mused. However, I haven't tried and don't know exactly how many pairs of these energy locks I can use at the same time. Being able to use superpowers is instinctive, but how powerful the ability is and its details indeed need to be tested repeatedly. But why did Jiang Yuning awaken such an ability? She's a police officer, so she gained this ability to handcuff people. So, consciousness can influence the type of superpower? That's interesting. If one keeps thinking about their dream ability during evolution, is it possible to obtain it? It's worth a try. Xiao Ran chuckled, extending his hand again. Handcuff me. Huh? Jiang Yuning foolishly handcuffed him. I haven't played with handcuffs on before. Xiao Ran showed a wicked smile. Officer Jiang, do you think that by handcuffing me, I can't do anything to you? Jiang Yuning stared at him blankly. You can even add lines for yourself. Don't want to, she said in a tone of seeking an opinion, meaning should I say lines like that? Xiao Ran laughed heartily, and like a hungry wolf pouncing on its prey, Officer Jiang was immediately pounced upon. After resolving Officer Jiang's side effects, Xiao Ran quietly set out, approaching the New World. He was still a full kilometer away from the entrance when Xiao Ran stopped, because his spatial perception told him that he was already on top of this base. The space dug out underground for this base was extremely large. About 5 meters below the ground was the vast, ant nest-like underground complex. This ant nest was not a metaphor, but truly structured like one. Xiao Ran guessed this wasn't built before the apocalypse. If it were the work of construction workers, then the underground base should be like a building or a warehouse, equivalent to stuffing the ground-level part underground. If someone were blindfolded and thrown in, they wouldn't be able to deduce from the building's features that they were actually underground. But this underground structure, let's call it a structure for now, was like an ant's nest or a beehive, all consisting of passages, with rooms dug out on both sides of the passages, not rectangular, but more spherical. A thought stirred in Xiao Ran's mind. Could this have been dug out by superpowered individuals? Lu Qing was a pangolin who could dig holes. Sister Qin had thousands of superpowered individuals under her. Would it be strange for a few to awaken similar abilities? Xiao Ran noticed a group of people in the underground space suddenly looking nervous, as if something terrible had happened, and then a group of people gathered around a woman. Yo, this woman was quite good-looking, around 30 years old, with a hot figure and extremely beautiful features, her red lips like flames, possessing an indescribable sexiness. Then, Xiao Ran heard someone report to this woman. Sister Qin, someone has come, right above us. Huh? Damn it. Do you also have spatial perception? No. If anyone could possess spatial superpowers, how could they possibly be subordinate to others? No matter how casually developed, they could become a local hegemon. Xiao Ran looked carefully, wanting to discern clues from the details of the person reporting. However, he couldn't see anything. And in the beehive below, the hot-bodied beauty frowned and said, in such a severely cold environment, and with heavy fog lockdown, to actually be able to appear at night. She paused, turned her head to look at a quiet man beside her. Chen-Kai, help me relay a message? Okay, Sister Qin. The quiet man nodded. Yo, so this is Qin Sui? She's very pretty. However, to be able to sit in the position of a faction leader, her strength must also be immensely powerful. Otherwise, how could so many men under her acknowledge her as their leader, instead of making her a plaything? Xiao Ran was somewhat surprised. How are you going to talk to me? Sister Qin spoke, her red lips like flames, making one's heart flutter. Her mature charm was indeed rarely matched. She said, This friend, the night is cold and lonely. Why not come to my place as a guest? Chen-Kai also opened his mouth, but made no sound. Instead, the entire snowfield seemed to be filled with loudspeakers, emitting a huge sound. This friend, the night is cold. He repeated Sister Qin's words. Damn it, you really are a mouthpiece. Xiao Ran found it interesting and thought, if I answer, will you be able to hear me? He thought for a moment, took out a voice changer from his pocket, stuck it to his neck, and then said, where are you? This was a probe, a double probe. In the beehive, the person who had previously reported to Qin Sui perked up his ears and immediately said, that person is asking where we are. Xiao Ran suddenly understood. So it was you, kid, who heard me. Wait. Cheng Qian defected to Qin Sui, and Cheng Qian second in command. Named Lu Qi, I think that's his name, he can capture vibrations in a large area, acting like an all-weather surveillance system. So, since Cheng Qian came, Lu Qi must also be here. This person is Lu Qi? This ability is so annoying. He hadn't even done anything yet, and he was already exposed. Then if I want to do something in the future, wouldn't it be over before it even starts? In a battle between two armies, one must first cut off the enemy's intelligence capabilities. I need to find a way to deal with this person. Use spatial exchange to get this person out? No, the distance is too great. This beehive, I don't know who dug it, is a full 300 meters deep, yet it's a miracle it hasn't been flooded by groundwater. And Qin Sui and the others are at a depth of about 200 meters, which exceeds the maximum range of spatial exchange. No pain, no gain, right? The meaning passed down by our ancestors, don't get the wrong idea. Today, Lu Qi must die. Xiao Ran's mind stirred, and he decisively activated spatial exchange. I can't directly exchange Lu Qi out, but I can exchange myself down. He immediately disappeared from his original spot, replaced by a chair. Sister Qin, that person is gone. Lu Qi exclaimed immediately, his face full of disbelief, because he had suddenly heard Xiao Ran's footsteps, realizing someone was walking above, and their steps were steady and unhurried, making him realize something was wrong, which was why he had immediately gone to inform Qin Sui. And even after Xiao Ran stopped walking, he could still detect Xiao Ran's heartbeat. Actually, he could detect the heartbeats of everyone within a 3-kilometer radius. Due to his superpower, these heartbeats were layered, allowing him to easily determine their locations. In Xiao Ran's direction, there was only one heartbeat, very conspicuous. But suddenly, this heartbeat disappeared. Could he have died instantly? Impossible. Then could he have forcibly stopped his heart from beating? That should also be impossible. So, he was extremely panicked. After his initial shock, Lu Qi quickly calmed down. After all, this was Sister Qin's territory, and there were more than 20 superpowered individuals, extremely powerful superpowered individuals, around him. So what did he have to fear? Could that mysterious person still force his way in and attack him? Taking a step back, that person couldn't possibly have the same superpower as him, capable of capturing all vibrations. Sound is just one form of vibration. So, that person couldn't possibly know of his existence. No fear, no fear. Once he calmed down, he keenly noticed an extra heartbeat in the base. This time, he was truly scared stiff, his heart almost stopping. Everyone's heartbeat is different, and the stronger the physique, the steadier the heartbeat. This person's heart strength ranked second in the entire beehive, second only to Brother Kong. Lu Kong, a physical type who had absorbed many units of superpower and was Sister Qin's right-hand man, possessing immense strength. But the problem was, even Brother Kong couldn't have blasted through layers of soil and rock in that instant from the ground, closing a distance of nearly 100 meters. What kind of monster was this? He's in. Lu Qi finally finished his sentence. However, he was horrified, because he was no longer in his original place, but another one. It should be one of the rooms in the base. How? How could it be? Lu Qi shivered. Similarly, this scene also stunned Qin Sui and the others, because they had personally seen Lu Qi disappear into thin air, and then a card slowly floated down, with the words Chu Liu Xiang, the bandit chief, written on it. Sister Qin, Sister Qin. Everyone looked towards Qin Sui. Sister Qin merely pondered for a moment, then said, Xiao Ran is here. Although she didn't know that Xiao Ran later possessed the new ability of spatial exchange. Only Xiao Ran should be able to walk in the wild on a foggy night, right? She had seen the battle footage transmitted back by her subordinates of Xiao Ran fighting Wei Lily and others, and had long analyzed Xiao Ran's abilities. Not only did she conclude that Xiao Ran was a spatial type ability user, but his several main abilities had also been analyzed quite thoroughly by her and her subordinates. So, when she saw Lu Qi disappear so bizarrely, and a newcomer could move freely in the fog, she immediately thought of Xiao Ran. This was the only possibility. Where in the world are there so many mysterious experts? Jiahao, find them. Qin Sui turned her head and said to a man. This man was named Liang Jiahao. He nodded, activated his superpower, and instantly his face appeared in every mirror in the base, looking around. Found them in room B13.I, he shouted. But before Qin Sui could issue a new order, Liang Jiahao said, "They're gone again." Gone. Two living people had vanished into thin air. Qin Sui couldn't help but frown tightly, and so did the others. Terrifying. Xiao Ran had a complete grasp of the situation in the entire beehive. Therefore, when he discovered Liang Jiahao's ability was to observe through mirrors, he left immediately. What about Lu Qi? He had already been instantly killed by spatial cutting and stored in the dimensional space. After killing someone, it was naturally impossible not to absorb their superpower and leave it for the enemy. Right now, Qin Sui's side was at least half an enemy. Then, he exchanged places with the chair on the snowfield and departed gracefully, without taking a single brick or tile. Top-notch character. Xiao Ran returned to the building where Jiang Yuning was, brought her to the hovercraft, and then rushed back overnight. On the way, he simply absorbed Lu Qi's superpower. This guy's superpower wasn't weak, around 20 units. After all, he was the second in command of Chang Qian's faction. How could he not have some strength? But among those previous superpowered individuals, which one was Chang Qian? He didn't know, so naturally, he hadn't found him. However, Qin Sui's faction indeed had many superpowered individuals. Previously, whether it was the Blood Toxin Man or later He Chunhua, both said Sister Qin had nearly 1,000 superpowered individuals under her. But according to Xiao Ran's investigation just now, this faction's superpowered individuals had reached about 1,500. From nearly 1,000, or over 1,000, to suddenly skyrocketing to 1,500. This increase was too great. Could it be that in just a few days, hundreds of superpowered individuals had come into effect? Or were they created by Qin Sui? Xiao Ran believed it was the latter, because among these 1,500 people, only a mere 30 or so had cellular strength exceeding their original state. All the others were in a newly awakened state. Therefore, Xiao Ran believed that all these 1,500 superpowered individuals were manufactured by a Sister Qin. Could Sister Qin's superpower be creating superpowered individuals? So, because the Blood Toxin Man was artificially created, he had no superpower to absorb after he died? Thinking this way, it naturally made sense. But if this was her only superpower, how could Qin Sui become the leader of a faction? Functional type, superpowered individuals were destined to be enslaved. For example, if Xiao Ran defected to some faction, the leader of that faction would definitely value his dimensional space storage ability and then suppress Xiao Ran from upgrading, making Xiao Ran content to be a tool man. Was Sister Qin weak? Not weak. Xiao Ran tried to probe Sister Qin's strength, but the other party seemed like a black hole. He actually couldn't detect her. This was the first time Xiao Ran encountered a situation where his spatial perception couldn't detect a target. So, was this Sister Qin's ability? And this Sister Qin also gave him a rather dangerous feeling, definitely not someone to be trifled with. She might be even stronger than Wei Lily. No, she was definitely stronger than Wei Lily. However, her subordinates were very weak. The strongest one had only absorbed about 40 units of superpower. Far from enough. If Sister Qin absorbed hundreds or even thousands of units of superpower, how did she do it? No faction would allow their leader to monopolize the spoils like that, right? They would have rebelled long ago. If I can't beat you, can I defect? It's better than being leeched by you. So, Qin Sui either secretly obtained the superpower, or she was always at the forefront of every battle, killing most of the superpowered individuals. The more effort she put in, the greater the reward, and no one could be jealous. Which one is the truth? After everyone has evolved, I'll go undercover again. I have to figure it out. When he entered the beehive before, he was wearing a helmet, so that mirror superpowered individual didn't know what he looked like. Naturally, he could still go undercover. Go home first. We'll talk about going undercover later. No, first solve the side effects of absorbing superpower. Officer Jiang, let's role play again. By the time Xiao Ran and the other person returned to Qingfeng Garden, it was already the next morning. Suddenly, golden light filled the sky. The sun came out. On the snowfield, a dazzling reflection. Strangely, even though the sun had clearly come out, why was the temperature still so low? The snow showed no signs of melting at all. Strange, even the South and North Poles melt some old ice blocks in summer. Why was there no sign of it here? Isn't our sun in its prime? How has it already become so weak and powerless? Xiao Ran looked at the sun. Because he was wearing goggles, he could look directly at this dazzling ball of fire, but from such a vast distance, he naturally couldn't tell if there was anything wrong with the sun. Back home, Xiao Ran first took a hot bath, then caught up on some sleep. When he woke up, it was already noon. The family had lunched together, in a harmonious atmosphere. Now, only Yuan Tong, Wang Lulu, Officer Bai, and Yin Qin, for people, had not completed their evolution. Oh, and a dog. Today, Bowsy would also complete its evolution. Xiao Ran had staggered the start of Bowsy's and Yuan Tong's evolution. So theoretically, the human and dog would also reach their critical points at different times, with a 6-hour gap in between. However, the appearance of the critical point wasn't strictly on schedule. It was possible that the human and dog would still reach the critical point at the same time. Multitasking? Possible. Back at Hope Camp, Xiao Ran had performed more than 2 surgeries simultaneously. It was just that at that time, he hadn't used banishment, only spatial cutting for intervention. So it was still best to do them one by one. Time moved to the afternoon. To Xiao Ran's surprise, Bowsy, who was supposed to start evolving 6 hours later, entered the critical point early. Then you first. Xiao Ran used banishment on Bowsy, instantly transforming into countless small spaces, controlling the rampant energy within Bowsy's body. After the energy seed began to stabilize, it was then released successively. Gradually, the energy seed took shape. Haha, I finally have an evolved pet. Isn't this standard in novels? Please don't let it be lightning superpower, or someone might say I'm plagiarizing. Boom. The energy seed shattered, instantly nourishing Bowsy's entire body. Visibly, Bowsy's body size was rapidly increasing. Damn, it's not going to be body stretching, right? That could also be plagiarism. A few minutes later, Bowsy's body size stopped increasing. But before, it was the size of an ordinary rural dog. Now, it was comparable to a fierce tiger. Thinking back to the first mutated beast he encountered, wasn't that husky also frighteningly large? So, was Bowsy a physical type? Good. Xiao Ran patted Bowsy. Bowsy immediately scrambled up, claws gripping the ground, upper body slightly lowered, showing a state of alert. After seeing Xiao Ran clearly, it immediately started wagging its tail, its intention to please obvious. Bowsy, what ability did you awaken? Xiao Ran asked. Bowsy had clearly completed its evolution, but it seemed only its body had evolved, not its brain. It stared blankly at Xiao Ran, wagging its tail even more diligently. Alas! Xiao Ran put his hand to his forehead. How was he supposed to communicate with Bowsy? Suddenly, his body disappeared from its original spot. Thwack, a pillow fell down. Again, Bowsy was already used to it. Small matter, this dog has seen big scenes. However, seeing Xiao Ran suddenly disappear, it seemed to be stimulated or perhaps inspired. It couldn't help but shiver slightly, and a layer of rock armor actually appeared on its body. Xiao Ran, however, did not notice Bowsy's subsequent changes, his attention entirely focused on Yuan Tong. Performing this surgery required extremely precise operations, and it took a long time, so Xiao Ran naturally focused his enhanced spatial perception solely on Yuan Tong, which could reduce a portion of his superpower consumption. He immediately entered the zone. Banishment plus spatial cutting, he initiated a deep-level intervention. An hour later, Xiao Ran finished his work. Completed. Indeed, his guess was likely very reasonable. If creatures evolved naturally, the mortality rate was as high as 90%. However, by using banishment to control the formation of the energy seed, not only was the safety factor increased, but the probability of becoming a superpowered individual also grew. This was a 90% improvement space. There was still a 10% chance of becoming an ordinary person, but the upper limit for successful evolution was 90%. Su Xinran and Zhang Jingya's failures were actually low-probability events. They were just too unlucky. Otherwise, out of 12 women and 1 dog in a house, it would be normal for only 1 person to fail evolution. Yuan Tong woke up faintly. Teacher Yu, how do you feel? Xiao Ran asked. Yuan Tong stretched, her beautiful curves fully revealed, making Xiao Ran's gaze in slightly transfixed. TSK. Teacher Yu is truly broad-minded. It feels like I had a wonderful sleep, especially comfortable, Yuan Tong said in a voice still tinged with laziness. Try and see what ability you've awakened, Xiao Ran said. Yuan Tong nodded. During these 10 days, she hadn't been in a coma continuously, but had been waking and sleeping intermittently, so she roughly knew what had happened. Xiao Ran was full of anticipation. Every time the girls successfully awakened, it was like drawing a lottery. If it was true that what goes around comes around, then was Teacher Yu's superpower related to education? A clothes appear out of thin air ability would be pretty sweet. 1 second, she's wearing thick black-rimmed glasses and serious, conservative clothes. The next, she's a hot girl in a uniform, wearing white stockings, high heels stepping on something, looking like a queen. It seems that can be done without superpowers. I'll let teacher you try later. Student Xiao, Yuan Tong suddenly said. Hey, already in character? Xiao Ran was very excited and shouted, Present. Yuan Tong smiled slightly. Come, recite the 100 family surnames 10 times. Zhao, Chen, Sun, Li Zhou, Zheng. Xiao Ran blurted out, but immediately tensed up, quickly stopped, and then looked at Yuan Tong, his eyes filled with surprise. Yuan Tong, however, smiled at him. Is this your ability? Xiao Ran asked in surprise, because he clearly wasn't voluntarily reciting the 100 family surnames. Instead, it was as if a voice deep inside him was egging him on, making him completely stop thinking and blurt out. Yuan Tong nodded. I seem to be able to influence others. Damn, is this words of power? Teacher you're amazing. Yuan Tong is a teacher, and this ability indeed suits her profession and philosophy. However, also being a teacher, why did Han Yun awaken abilities like softbow and art and compressor? In comparison, Teacher Han seems too improper. No, Yuan Tong's ability is clearly not as strong as he imagined, because he stopped after reciting just the beginning of the 100 family surnames, instead of racking his brains to recite the whole thing. Try making me do something else, Xiao Ran said. Activating an ability is instinctive, but the extent to which an ability can be used is figured out bit by bit. Yuan Tong nodded. Kiss me. Damn it. You look so tempting right now. I want to kiss you even if you don't say it. Thinking this, Xiao Ran immediately found that a voice seemed to have appeared in his mind, telling him to kiss, with an extremely seductive effect. But this time, Xiao Ran was prepared, and it was different. He resisted the temptation of this voice. In fact, Yuan Tong's own allure was even greater than these words. Yuan Tong had just acquired her superpower. It was clearly unscientific for her, at a 1-unit level, to try to sway him, a big shot with over 2,000 units. The first time she was able to influence Xiao Ran was because he was completely unprepared, but he also reacted immediately. However, this shouldn't be called words have power, but rather a vastly weakened version of mind trick, mind control, suggestion, something like that. I like to call you the strongest lecturer. Let's go try it on others, he said enthusiastically. Wait, Yuan Tong's eyes were already full of allure, and she quickly pulled him, not letting him go. Oh, the side effects have occurred. My mistake, I forgot about this. Crap, Bowsy. Forget it, can't worry about Bowsy now. Xiao Ran smiled slightly. Beg me. Master, I want it. Xiao Ran supported his waist. Teacher, you is all I want more. Fortunately, I've been strengthened many times, otherwise I really might not have been able to handle it. He and Yuan Tong walked out of the room together, and then found the women in the main hall. Except for Wang Lulu and the other 2 girls who were still feverish, everyone else was there. What were they doing? Riding Bowsy around. After evolving, Bowsy had the physique of a tiger, let alone carrying 1 woman. Even 3 or 4 people riding together would be effortless. Xiao Ran, however, was surprised. Bowsy hadn't gone berserk. Could it be that animals don't have that kind of side effect after evolution? Strange. It's getting late. Everyone should go to bed. Yuan Tong said loudly. Instantly, Bowsy stopped, letting Han Yun and Jiang Yuning, who were on its back, get down. Then all the women and Bowsy went back to their respective rooms. However, after just a few steps, they all let out a surprise huh, and stopped. Oh, why did I obey? Yeah, it's like a voice made me obey. The women were very curious. Go back to your rooms and sleep, Yuan Tong said again. The women, including Bowsy, once again started walking towards the upstairs. Still, after a few steps, they stopped again. Like this again? So strange. Amidst the women's surprised voices, Yuan Tong continued to use her ability. Although the women could quickly come to their senses each time, even with preparation, it was useless. They would still go to execute the command, and only then realize. So, this was related to the strength of the superpower. Xiao Ran had absorbed over 2,000 units of superpower. As long as he was slightly prepared, Yuan Tong couldn't influence him at all. But the women were different. Even the most powerful Han Yun had only absorbed about 10 units of superpower and was still affected every time. This ability was somewhat awesome. Xiao Ran had Yuan Tong continue to try. It turned out that the degree to which the target obeyed, or rather the strength of their resistance, was also related to the content of Yuan Tong's command. When she told the women to go back to their rooms and sleep, They showed no resistance at all. However, when she told them to open the door and go outside, all the women showed signs of struggle. Although the result was still walking towards the main door, the time it took for them to come to their senses was much quicker. Therefore, if the command issued by Yuan Tong was harmful to the target or detrimental to their interests, the target's will to resist would be stronger, thus breaking free from control more quickly. Mainly, Teacher Yu has just successfully evolved. What if she absorbs 100 or even 1,000 units of superpower? If she says go die, would even a 500-unit big shot immediately draw a sword and commit suicide? If she were a few times stronger, would even I obediently listen? But this ability also has very obvious shortcomings. If someone wears earplugs, wouldn't they be immune? Let's try. Sure enough, after putting on earplugs, as long as one couldn't hear what Yuan Tong said, her ability couldn't be exerted at all. Moreover, this ability is also afraid of sniper rifles. From 1,000 meters away, one shot to your head, and you wouldn't even have a chance to speak. Unless Teacher Yu's ability improves, allowing her to influence and control others through brainwaves with a greatly increased distance, just like Professor X in the movies. Xiao Ran shook his head. It was unknown how much superpower Yuan Tong would need to absorb to reach such a level. But with his existence, resources would obviously be overwhelmingly tilted towards him. So Teacher Yu would likely find it difficult to advance. He wouldn't be foolish enough to engage in egalitarianism at this time. The correct use of Teacher Yu should be, when I'm dejected, for her to say, Brother Xiao Ran, stand up. Then, Xiao Ran looked at Bowsy. What did he just see? Bowsy's body actually had an extra suit of stone armor. Looking at your thick eyebrows and big eyes, it turns out you can actually deceive people. You're not a physical type at all, but an Earth attribute evolved beast? Bowsy, come. Teacher Yu's ability test was almost done, so was Bowsy's turn. Under Xiao Ran's patient probing, Bowsy's abilities gradually became clear. Indeed, it was Earth attribute. The increase in size and strength were just byproducts. It could form a shield around its body, and also form armor, capable of resisting ordinary bullet attacks. It would shatter after 3 shots. Sniper rifles were too much, shattering it in 1 shot, but at least it could block one. Not strong, but Bowsy had just awakened. Xiao Ran rested his chin on his hand. Similarly, just evolved, but the improvement in animals after evolution seemed to be much greater than in humans. That mutated husky before was like that, strong enough to be comparable to absorbing 10 units of superpower. On land, it was better. Apart from that mutated husky, Bowsy was the second evolved beast, and it was even artificially induced. But this was the city, animals were already scarce, and the success rate of natural evolution was low. Many didn't even have a chance to evolve before freezing or starving to death. Very good, Bowsy. In the future, I won't need the hovercraft anymore. It consumes too much fuel. Riding you is green travel. Even environmentalist girls won't find fault. Xiao Ran wasn't really teasing Bowsy, but genuinely had such an intention. Because the sound of the hovercraft was too loud, the engine noise was clearly audible from 800 meters away. But Bowsy's running was different. Its paws were fleshy, with a built-in sound dampening function. Unfortunately, it wasn't a cat. Cats' footsteps are even quieter. But if you have a dog, you don't keep a cat. Otherwise, the house will be a mess. Forget it, let it be. Go get some good rest. I'll take you out for a spin tomorrow. You must have been cooped up for so many days. Xiao Ran patted the dog's head. It felt good, so he couldn't help but pet it a few more times. A night passed. The apocalypse entered its 80th day. Xiao Ran didn't go anywhere that day. He had already alerted the enemy last night, so he decided to wait a few days before taking action. And at home, only 3 girls were still evolving, so he might as well wait until they all finished evolving. Today was Yin Qin's turn. Her evolution failed. She was naturally very disappointed. In their home, there were many superpowered individuals and few who failed evolution. Another day passed, and it was by Rui's turn. She successfully evolved, and the superpower she awakened was completely different from the other girls. She was the only Beast-morph type. Under Xiao Ran's gaze, her ears became furry, and a white, furry long tail drooped down from her buttocks. Her entire body was also covered in a layer of snow-white fur. But instead of looking strange, she became even more foxy. Is this turning into a fox spirit? Xiao Ran was shocked. This beast-eared girl was clearly a fox spirit. That big, furry tail swept across the bedsheets, as if it had a mind of its own. In her beast-morph state, this already charming woman became even more enchanting and alluring. Every move exuded a powerful charm. When she walked, Her ample hips swayed with unparalleled style, exaggeratedly so. Sexy as a demon. This ability wasn't just about increasing charm. It was highly practical. Her strength, speed, reflexes, and endurance were all greatly enhanced. Originally, running 800 meters would leave her breathless, willing to show you her heart. Now, she ran 3 kilometers in one go, not only without panting, but without a single bead of sweat on her body. Hee hee, sexy fox girl dealing cards online. Real person, no special effects. Want to know more? Xiao Ran tried it out. Wonderful beyond words. It's over. If I get interested in furry things in the future, wouldn't I really become a pervert? Another night passed. Today was Wang Lulu's critical point of evolution, and also the last among everyone to complete evolution. Around 7 in the evening, she began the final step, condensing the energy seed. An hour later, Wang Lulu successfully condensed the seed. Boom! The seed shattered, and energy nourished her entire body. Another one succeeded. Xiao Ran nodded. 12 people and 1 dog. Ultimately, only 3 people failed. The evolution success rate was as high as 75%, and the survival rate was 100%. Wang Lulu's superpower was healing. Flesh wounds could be healed immediately, visibly fast, whether for herself or others. The larger the wound, the more superpower it consumed. This was a very strong support ability. As for whether broken bones could be restored immediately, Xiao Ran didn't let her try, because there was no suitable target. Sometime when a bad guy is caught, break his bones and try. At this point, everyone's evolution came to an end. If Xiao Ran wanted to develop some new superpowers, he would have to bring over the 14 people from Qinghong building. However, he had no such plans for the time being. The next day, Xiao Ran, who had been cooped up at home for several days, finally couldn't resist taking action. Bowsy, let's go. Xiao Ran mounted Bowsy, and Bowsy, excited, howled and shot out with a movement of its 4 limbs at extreme speed. Dog Lord is going to wreak havoc today. Bowsy was majestic like a dragon moving, like a tiger leaping. Slap. It received a slap from Xiao Ran. Stupid dog. Wrong direction. East. East. Can't even get the direction right, sigh. What kind of stupid dog did I raise? Destination, New World. Mission, find useful clues. Entry method, disguised identity. Xiao Ran thought to himself, with him and Bowsy, they could completely disguise themselves as a beast tamer. Would Sister Qin and the others realize he was Xiao Ran, the person who had raided them a few nights ago? Impossible. A few nights ago, he had deliberately worn a helmet precisely to avoid revealing his identity, making it convenient for him to infiltrate again. Otherwise, why would he have insisted on killing Lu Qi? Bowsy's running speed was even faster than the hovercraft's. And although the wind was biting cold, Xiao Ran didn't care at all. His current physical fitness was too formidable. Small matter. In just over half an hour, Bowsy had already carried Xiao Ran to the vicinity of New World. This was with Bowsy holding back its strength. Otherwise, it could have been even faster. Xiao Ran did not dismount, but gently patted Bowsy, letting it continue forward. So this majestic big dog arrived at the entrance of New World. There were sentries at the entrance. Seeing Bowsy, they were naturally so scared they nearly lost control of their bladders, because these 4 sentries all thought Bowsy was a tiger, and they were just ordinary people. An ordinary person encountering a tiger could only think of a more dignified way to die. Don't be nervous, this is my pet, Xiao Ran smiled, and Bowsy timely stopped. The 4 sentries simultaneously looked at Xiao Ran, only then realizing there was a person on the tiger's back. Who are you? They asked simultaneously. Xiao Ran smiled. Remove his goggles and hat. My name is Xiao Ran. Huh. Hey. Xiao Ran was stunned, looking at the 4 people in front of him in surprise. How could you possibly recognize me? When did I become famous? Impossible, although I am indeed very awesome. Those who knew I was awesome are already dead. So, why can even a few small fries recognize me at a glance? Xiao Ran was suddenly a bit stumped. Wasn't I supposed to infiltrate with a disguised identity? But my identity was exposed before I even entered the door. How could this plan be implemented? Why is it that every time I make a plan, some kind of mishap occurs? Xiao Ran could only smile a little awkwardly. Damn it, luckily I didn't blurt out that my name was Summer or Autumn, otherwise wouldn't that have been a huge joke? So it's Boss Xiao gracing us with his presence. The 4 sentries immediately became polite and respectful. Our Sister Qin said that Boss Xiao is our most honored guest. Please come in. We will immediately inform Sister Qin for Boss Xiao. Xiao Ran nodded with a calm expression, looking light and unconcerned, but his heart was full of doubt. How on earth was I exposed? After a short while, a beautiful woman of about 30 years old led a group out. She was as beautiful as a peach blossom, her figure graceful. Even in such extremely cold weather, she only wore a Chong Sam, fully displaying her hot and sexy figure. Wasp waist, plump hips, the proportions were quite exaggerated. Her looks could score 80 points, her figure 90 points and above. Very good. Xiao Ran commented very professionally, his eyes clear and bright. Boss Xiao. The beautiful woman cupped her hands and smiled. Who dares to shake hands these days? Everyone is afraid of being tricked. Xiao Ran smiled slightly. Boss Qin. The beautiful woman smiled charmingly. People who know me call me Sister Qin. Xiao Ran just smiled, not following suit and calling her Sister Qin. I'm not your subordinate. Why should I call you sister? He asked curiously. I don't think I've met Boss Qin before. Why can Boss Qin's people recognize me at a glance? Strange. Qin Sui did not answer, but said, Boss Xiao, since you're here, why not come in and sit for a while? Come, let's sit down and talk, how about it? Xiao Ran was naturally skilled and bold. With the two divine skills of banishment and spatial exchange in hand, what did he have to fear? The situation of this base is an open book to me. Which part can I see? All right then, he said, calm, composed. Qin Sui showed no expression, but many of her subordinates revealed looks of displeasure. You come alone into the tiger's den and dragon's pool. On what grounds are you so calm? Do you really think we're just decorations? Bowsy let out a low growl, baring its teeth, looking ferocious. It sensed the hostility from the crowd. Xiao Ran dismounted the dog and gently patted Bowsy's head. Go play by yourself for a while. Dogs can inherently understand some simple commands from their owners. After evolution, they become even smarter. Bowsy let out a soft whimper, then bolted off on its four legs and disappeared into the snowfield. Qin Sui did not stop it, just watched with a smile. After Bowsy disappeared, she said, Boss Xiao, please. Please. Xiao Ran walked down the slope and soon entered this labyrinthine underground camp with its network of passages. Let alone ordinary people, even superpowered individuals could easily get lost inside. But in front of Xiao Ran, he knew exactly where every passage led, perhaps even more familiar than the creator of this base. However, he still asked, Boss Qin has truly made a grand undertaking, creating such a magnificent underground city. Upon reaching a depth of 10 meters underground, the temperature was actually already quite high, back above freezing. Moreover, the entire underground city was not dark at all. Lights were on everywhere, not illuminating every detail, but definitely not affecting vision. They continued downwards. By the time they reached over 100 meters underground, the environment was already extremely hot. Even wearing summer clothes would make one sweat. However, superpowered individuals have strong adaptability and high resistance to cold and heat, so Xiao Ran remained very calm, as did Qin Sui. The other superpowered individuals, however, clearly had sweat on their foreheads. It was only after they entered a room that a refreshing coolness immediately washed over them, instantly dissipating the heat. It turned out there were many blocks of ice placed here, dripping and melting into a water tank. These should be ice blocks brought from outside, placed here both for cooling and for the melted water to be drinkable, killing two birds with one stone. Aren't ice blocks easy to obtain now? Qin Sui first invited Xiao Ran to sit down, then said, I have a few subordinates who are good at digging. This place was dug out by them, a bit like Lu Qing. Xiao Ran nodded. It's good to have many superpowered individuals under you. You can have whatever abilities you need. Boss Xiao, are you still wondering why we can all recognize you? Qin Sui smiled. Xiao Ran smiled. Indeed. Qin Sui laughed heartily. I have a subordinate whose ability is to see what happened in a place up to 5 days ago. Coincidentally, this subordinate of mine went to Shaoyang Mountain and found the ruins of the hot spring hotel there. He traced back what happened and discovered the battle footage of Boss Xiao against Wei Lily, Chao Xining, and others. Even better, this subordinate of mine can also project these images for others to see. So, naturally, everyone here knows what Boss Xiao looks like. TSK, Boss Xiao is truly formidable. So that's how I was exposed. Being able to look into the past, this ability is quite something. If one absorbed a few more units of superpower, could they trace back images from years, or even tens of thousands of years ago? This intelligence-gathering ability is formidable. However, Qin Sui was clearly wary of him, only saying she had such a subordinate, but not directly introducing this person to Xiao Ran. Is she afraid I'll kill him to silence him? Qin Sui smiled, snapped her fingers, and said, Bring the gift over. A gift? What valuable things are there these days that can be given as gifts? Beautiful women. Food. Xiao Ran remained impassive. After a while, someone came over carrying a tray. On the tray, there seemed to be a spherical object, covered by a red cloth, but surrounded by ice blocks, apparently being kept frozen for preservation. Could it be? His heart skipped a beat. He saw Qin Sui walk over and personally lift the red cloth. Instantly, a ferocious-looking human head appeared before Xiao Ran's eyes. "This is Cheng Qian," Qin Sui said casually. "A few days ago, he came to defect to me with his men. At that time, I didn't know he had a grudge against Boss Xiao, so I took him in. Later, I found out about the process of his feud with Boss Xiao. I really want to be friends with Boss Xiao, so I had to do wrong by Boss Cheng. Actually, if Boss Xiao just says the word, I'll present Lu Qi's head as well." Impressive. Xiao Ran looked at this beautiful woman. Every frown and smile exuded sexiness, yet her actions made one's blood run cold. Cheng Qian should be considered her ally, right? And the result? Killed. His superpower must have been absorbed by her. Moreover, she deliberately pointed something out to Xiao Ran. "I know you are the mysterious person who broke in a few days ago. Seeing through it, but not saying it, this woman's cunning is deep, her methods ruthless. She's a complete femme fatale." This was also indirectly warning Xiao Ran. "It's fine if you kill one of my subordinates, but if you want to make another move, I'm not a pushover either." Cheng Qian was, after all, one of the 5 giants. Wasn't he killed just like that? Xiao Ran smiled. Apart from Qin Sui, no one else here was in his eyes. However, Qin Sui was unfathomable. Naturally, Qin Sui also felt that Xiao Ran was very strong, and his abilities were bizarre. A rash move might not guarantee victory. So even though this was her home ground, she still didn't turn hostile. Mutual apprehension. "Boss Qin wants to form an alliance with me?" Xiao Ran asked. Qin Sui nodded. "There's a faction of superpowered individuals in the East that constantly opposes me and has killed many of my people. However, they seem to have someone with clairvoyance or something, always managing to find my lone operatives and ruthlessly kill them. But when I personally lead an expedition or send out elite subordinates, that group always manages to evade us in advance. Perhaps Boss Xiao can help me deal with this group of people." Xiao Ran just smiled. Firstly, who knew if what Qin Sui said was true or false? Secondly, what did Qin Sui's enemies have to do with him? Seeing Xiao Ran unmoved, Qin Sui continued. "Boss Xiao, we don't know how long this cataclysm will last. Moreover, even if the cataclysm ends, the future rulers of this world will inevitably be superpowered individuals like us. At that time, heroes will rise, competing for supremacy. This is a tremendous opportunity, but also extremely dangerous. This is just a small Sioux city, with a main urban population of only about 5 million, yet so many experts have already emerged. Looking at the whole of China, or even the whole world, how many experts are there? Moreover, the relationship between superpowered individuals is one of life and death. Unless tied together like grasshoppers on a string, it's very easy to be flattened by another powerful faction, and all previous hard work will be for naught. I know Boss Xiao is very strong, but this world is now full of powerful individuals. Perhaps in the neighboring high city, there are beings who surpass Boss Xiao. If one day they were to push over, what would Boss Xiao do? Let's join forces, unify Sioux City first, and then use Sioux City as a base to gradually expand throughout the country. Boss Xiao, although the number of superpower individuals is currently scarce, looking at the entire country and the whole world, with such a large population base, the number of superpower individuals is bound to be astonishing. After we absorb them, perhaps we'll become gods walking among mortals." It had to be said, this woman had a way with words. At least, her speech made one's blood boil, making one long for the day it might truly be realized. Gods walking among mortals. This might not be an exaggeration, because by continuously absorbing superpowers and constantly strengthening, superpowered individuals would indeed become stronger and stronger. In the future, it might not even be a dream for their physical bodies to withstand nuclear bombs. But Qin Sui was just offering a pie in the sky. Were you part of some pyramid scheme organization before? Otherwise, how could you be so good at brainwashing? Xiao Ran glanced at Qin Sui, then suddenly grinned. An alliance is good. Boss Xiao agrees? Qin Sui was slightly surprised, not expecting Xiao Ran to nod after just a few words. Agree, why not agree? Xiao Ran smiled. If Boss Qin feels that a verbal promise isn't formal enough, shall we sign a written contract? What the hell, a written contract? What time is it now? So what if you break the agreement? Will the public security, procuratorate, and court intervene? Besides, was she genuinely trying to ally with Xiao Ran? I heard that Boss Qin can help people evolve. Xiao Ran asked seemingly casually. Qin Sui glanced at him, then nodded generously. That's right. I'm very curious. Could you tell me a bit about it? Xiao Ran asked shamelessly. At worst, he'd be rejected. Qin Sui laughed heartily. It's through a ritual. Boss Xiao, do you have any relatives or friends who need to evolve? Send them over. I'll help you open a back door and reserve a few spots for you in the next awakening ritual. Beside them, a man explained, here, as long as you perform well, you can apply to become a superpowered individual. However, each awakening ritual can only accommodate 50 people, so the spots are always very tight. People who just signed up are already scheduled for several months later. So, Qin Si directly allowing Xiao Ran's people to cut the line for the next awakening ritual was naturally giving Xiao Ran immense face. Xiao Ran wouldn't dare send his women over. He had no idea what this awakening ritual was, and the blood toxin man was very strange, with no superpower to absorb after death, which naturally made Xiao Ran even more wary. Besides, how ruthless was Qin Sui to Changqian? Absorbed his superpower and used his head as a gift, such a venomous woman. Only a fool would dare send people over. Xiao Ran agreed to the alliance, just to find a reason to stay here and gather some intelligence. If he had infiltrated, he would have investigated secretly. Now, he would investigate openly.